Rochelle Washington stood outside the glass doors of the Sterling House restaurant, her hands trembling as she checked her phone for the 100th time. 1 hour and 17 minutes late. The numbers glowed accusingly on her cracked screen. Inside, through the frosted windows decorated with silver snowflakes and pine garlands, she could see couples laughing over candlelight, servers gliding between tables with practiced grace, and the warm glow of Christmas Eve luxury she could barely afford to witness, let alone experience. Her blue nursing scrubs were still damp from the rain, spotted with droplets that had soaked through her thin coat during the sprint from the bus stop. Her hair, which she'd carefully styled that morning before her hospital shift, now hung in wet strands around her face. Mascara, the cheap kind from the dollar store, had smudged beneath her eyes. She looked exactly like what she was, a broke, exhausted single mother who had no business being here. Kenji had spiked a fever of 102 degrees right as Rochelle was about to leave work. The emergency clinic visit, the waiting room full of coughing children, the copay she'd have to put on her already maxed credit card, the cab ride home because Kenji could barely walk, getting her daughter settled with Mrs. Chin next door, changing clothes, another bus ride downtown because her car had died last week and the repair cost was impossible. Each delay had added another nail in the coffin of this blind date her coworker Tamara had arranged. "He's perfect for you," Tamara had insisted 3 weeks ago, cornering Rochelle by the nurse's station. "My cousin went to college with him. He's successful, kind, single and looking for someone real. Not those fake women who just want his money." Rochelle had resisted. Dating was a luxury she couldn't afford, not with Kenji to raise alone, not with 2 jobs barely covering rent, not with her ex-husband Andre gone 3 years now without a single child support payment. But Tamara had been persistent, and something in Rochelle, some small desperate hope she tried to keep buried, had whispered, maybe this could be something. Maybe one good thing could happen. Now, staring at her reflection in the restaurant's pristine glass, she knew that hope had been foolish. No man, especially not a successful one, would wait over an hour for a woman he'd never met. He'd probably left after 20 minutes, annoyed and insulted, telling himself he'd dodged a bullet. The reservation Tamara had made was surely cancelled by now. The hostess would probably take one look at Rochelle's appearance and turn her away. But she'd come all this way. The least she could do was check, apologize to whoever would listen, and go home to salvage what was left of Christmas Eve with her daughter. Kenji's fever had broken before Rochelle left, thank God, but the little girl had looked so disappointed when Rochelle explained she had to go out. "Is it a date with a prince, Mama?" Kenji had asked, her eyes bright despite her flushed cheeks. At 6 years old, she still believed in fairy tales. "No, baby," Rochelle had replied, smoothing her daughter's braids. "Just a nice man Aunt Tamara knows. Probably nobody special." She'd been right about that, Rochelle thought bitterly. Nobody special would wait this long. Nobody special would give her a second chance after this disaster. Taking a deep breath, Rochelle pushed open the heavy door. Warm air rushed over her, carrying scents of roasted meat, fresh bread, and pine needles from the massive Christmas tree in the corner. The hostess, a young white woman in an elegant black dress, looked up with a practiced smile that faltered slightly when she saw Rochelle's disheveled appearance. "Good evening. Do you have a reservation?" Her tone was polite but doubtful. I was supposed to meet someone. Jonathan Pierce. The reservation was for 7 o'clock. I know I'm very late and he's probably gone, but I just wanted to apologize and—" "Oh, Mr. Pierce." The hostess's expression shifted to something warmer, almost sympathetic. "He's still here. He asked me to watch for you. Let me take you to his table." Rochelle's heart stopped. "He's still here? Are you sure?" "Positive. He's been waiting. Follow me, please." As they wound through the crowded restaurant, Rochelle's mind raced. Why would any man wait this long? Was he angry? Planning to publicly humiliate her? No, that seemed paranoid. Maybe he'd been late too. Maybe he'd just arrived. But the hostess said he'd been waiting, which meant he'd been here since 7. They reached a quiet corner table near a window overlooking the downtown square, where a massive Christmas tree sparkled with thousands of white lights. And there, sitting calmly with a glass of water and a menu, was a man who made Rochelle's breath catch despite her anxiety. He was African American, probably early 40s, with close-cropped hair just beginning to gray at the temples. He wore a dark green sweater that looked expensive but not showy, and when he looked up at her approach, his eyes were warm brown and kind. Not annoyed. Not angry. Just patient. He stood immediately, his tall frame unfolding with easy grace, and his smile was genuine. "Rochelle? I'm so sorry," the words tumbled out before she could stop them. I'm so incredibly sorry. My daughter got sick and the clinic was packed and the bus was late and I looked terrible and I completely understand if you want to leave right now because this is so rude and... Before you continue reading, can you do something for me? If you believe in second chances and the power of kindness, please subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment below telling me, would you have waited over an hour for someone you'd never met? Your answer might surprise you. Now let's see what Jonathan says next. Please sit down, Jonathan said gently, gesturing to the chair across from him. His voice was deep and calm, with none of the irritation she'd expected. I'm just glad you made it safely. Is your daughter okay? Rochelle sank into the chair, her legs suddenly weak. The hostess disappeared with a subtle nod, leaving them alone in their corner. She had a fever. 102 degrees. I couldn't leave her until I knew she was okay. The clinic took forever and then I had to get her home and settled with my neighbor. I tried to call but I didn't have your number, just the restaurant, and when I called they said they couldn't confirm if you were still here and I'm so sorry. She was rambling, she knew, but couldn't seem to stop. The stress of the evening, the fear about Kenji, the embarrassment of her appearance, all of it came pouring out. Rochelle. He said her name firmly but kindly and she stopped mid-sentence. Take a breath. It's okay. Your daughter needed you. That's not something to apologize for. Any decent person would understand that. But you've been waiting over an hour. I have. He smiled slightly. I ordered some appetizers about 40 minutes ago. I figured if you showed up you'd be hungry. If you didn't, well, I'd have leftovers for tomorrow. Would you like some water? What? They have an excellent selection here. Rochelle stared at him, genuinely confused by his reaction. You're not angry? Why would I be angry? You had a family emergency. Kids get sick. Life happens. I have a niece about your daughter's age. When she gets sick, my sister's whole world stops until she knows she's okay. I completely understand. Something tight in Rochelle's chest began to loosen. Tamara, your college friend's cousin, she didn't tell you much about me, did she? She told me you're a nurse, that you're smart and funny and genuine, and that you have a 6-year-old daughter. She also said you probably wouldn't agree to this date, so I should consider myself lucky if you showed up. His smile widened. And here you are, so I do. A server appeared with a basket of warm bread and small plates of olive oil and butter. Are we ready to order, or would you like more time? Jonathan looked at Rochelle. Have you eaten today? The question was simple, but something in his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Rochelle thought of the granola bar she'd grabbed at 6 that morning, the coffee that had been her lunch. Not really. Then let's get you some real food. What do you like? I don't know what's good here. I've never. She gestured vaguely at the elegant surroundings. This isn't exactly my usual. Mine either, honestly. I prefer a good burger place most days. But this seemed appropriate for a first meeting. How about this? Do you eat meat? Yes. Any allergies? No. Then trust me. He looked at the server. We'll do the herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables for the lady, and I'll have the sirloin medium rare. And could we get a pot of tea? Something herbal and calming. The server nodded and disappeared. Rochelle looked down at her damp scrubs, then back at Jonathan in his expensive sweater. I'm not really dressed for salmon. You're dressed like someone who spent her day taking care of sick people and then rushed across town in the rain to keep a commitment. That's more impressive than any fancy dress. He pushed the bread basket toward her. You look exhausted. She was. Bone-deep, soul-tired exhausted. The kind that came from working 60-hour weeks and still coming up short every month. But she took a piece of bread, spread butter on it and bit in. It was warm and soft and absolutely delicious. Thank you, she said after swallowing. For waiting. For being kind about this. Most people wouldn't have. Most people are idiots. Jonathan leaned back in his chair, studying her with an expression that wasn't pitying, just interested. Tell me about your daughter. Kenji, right? Tamara mentioned her name. Is she feeling better? And just like that, the conversation shifted from awkward apologies to something real. Rochelle found herself talking about Kenji, about her daughter's obsession with dinosaurs and her dream of becoming a paleontologist, about the way she narrated everything she did in a serious little voice that made Rochelle laugh even on the hardest days. She sounds wonderful, Jonathan said when Rochelle paused to sip her water. Does her father see her much? It was a delicate question, but his tone was neutral, just seeking information. No. He left when she was 3. We haven't heard from him since. I'm sorry. That must be incredibly hard. Some days more than others. Rochelle surprised herself with the honesty. But we manage. She's happy. That's what matters. Their food arrived, and Rochelle tried not to let her eyes widen at the generous portions and beautiful presentation. The salmon was perfectly cooked, flaky and tender, and the vegetables were roasted with herbs she couldn't identify but tasted amazing. "This is incredible," she said after the first bite. "Good. You need it?" Jonathan cut into his steak. "Tamara mentioned you work at County General?" "Yes. I'm a nurse in the pediatric unit. I've been there 5 years. That must be rewarding work." "It is. I love it. The kids are amazing even when they're sick and scared. Being able to help them, comfort them, it's why I went into nursing." She paused. "But it doesn't pay as well as you'd think. I also work weekends at a retail store downtown. The discount helps with Kenji's clothes." She hadn't meant to mention the second job, but it slipped out. Jonathan's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of something she couldn't quite read. 2 jobs and raising a daughter alone. "When do you sleep?" "Wednesdays mostly." She tried to make it a joke, but it fell flat. "I manage. We have a roof over our heads, food in the fridge. That's more than some people have. It's also less than you deserve." His tone was matter-of-fact, not pitying. "Working 2 jobs to get by isn't managing. It's surviving. There's a difference." Rochelle felt her defenses rise slightly. "I'm not looking for pity. I'm not offering any. I'm offering observation. There's a difference there too." He met her eyes steadily. "I grew up poor. Like really poor. Government cheese, hand-me-down clothes, holes in my shoes kind of poor. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep me and my sister fed. So when I see someone working themselves to exhaustion just to get by, I recognize it. And I respect it. But I also know it shouldn't have to be that way." Something in his voice made Rochelle believe him. This wasn't some rich man pretending to understand struggle. He'd lived it. "What do you do now?" she asked. Tamara was vague about that. "I work in technology and real estate. I started a software company about 15 years ago, sold it, invested in property, and built from there." He said it casually, like discussing the weather. "I got lucky. Right place, right time, right idea. I doubt it was just luck. Maybe not. But luck played a part. Hard work played a bigger one." He smiled. "What else should I know about you, Rochelle Washington? Besides that you're an excellent mother, a dedicated nurse, and possibly the most apologetic person I've ever met." She laughed, surprising herself. "I'm not usually this apologetic. Just when I show up over an hour late to dates." "Is this your first blind date?" "First date in 3 years actually. Blind or otherwise." His eyebrows rose. 3 years. Dating is complicated when you have a kid. And expensive. And time-consuming. And most men aren't interested in instant fatherhood. She shrugged, trying to sound casual about something that actually hurt quite a bit. "So I've focused on Kenji instead. She's enough." "She's enough, but you deserve more than enough. You deserve support, partnership, someone who sees your value." Jonathan's voice was gentle but firm. "And any man who can't see that a woman with a child is a package deal worth having isn't worth your time." Rochelle felt something shift in her chest. When was the last time someone had said something like that to her? Not about what she should do differently, not about how she should be grateful for what she had, but just that she deserved more? "That's a nice thought," she said quietly. "It's not just a thought. It's truth." He paused as the server came to clear their plates. "Would you like dessert? They have an amazing chocolate cake here." "I probably shouldn't. I need to get home to Kenji." "What time does your neighbor have her until?" She said midnight, but I don't want to take advantage. "It's barely 9. Share a piece of cake with me, let yourself have 10 more minutes of something nice, and I'll make sure you get home safely. Deal?" Rochelle hesitated, then nodded. "Deal. But only if you let me pay for half of dinner. I don't expect you to cover everything." "Absolutely not. I invited you out. I pay. Non-negotiable." "But, Rochelle." He leaned forward slightly. "Let someone do something nice for you. You spend all day taking care of other people. Let someone take care of you for once." The words hit harder than they should have. How long had it been since someone took care of her? Since someone put her needs first, even in a small way? She couldn't remember. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you." The cake arrived, rich and decadent with layers of chocolate and raspberry filling. They shared it in comfortable silence for a few moments, and Rochelle realized with surprise that she felt relaxed for the first time all evening. Jonathan was easy to be around. He didn't fill every silence with chatter, didn't try too hard to impress her, didn't make her feel like she was being interviewed or judged. "Can I ask you something?" she said finally. Anything. Why did you really wait? Most people would have left after 20 minutes. You waited over an hour for someone you'd never even met. Jonathan set down his fork and considered the question seriously. Honestly, I almost didn't. After about 40 minutes I thought maybe you weren't coming. But something made me stay. Maybe it was the way Tamara talked about you, like you were someone special who'd been through a lot. Maybe it was the memory of my mom showing up late to everything because she was juggling too much but always doing her best. Or maybe, he smiled. Maybe I just had a feeling that if you did show up, you'd be worth the wait. And am I? The question slipped out before Rochelle could stop it. Absolutely. His answer was immediate and certain. This is the best date I've had in years and you spent the first 10 minutes apologizing. Imagine how good the second date could be. Rochelle's heart skipped. You want a second date? I want as many dates as you're willing to give me. If you're interested, that is. I understand if you're not ready, or if this isn't what you're looking for. No pressure. Was she interested? Looking at Jonathan across the table, at his kind eyes and patient smile, at the way he'd treated her not like a charity case or a burden but like someone valuable, she realized she was very interested. I'd like that, she said. A second date. But I have to warn you, my schedule is complicated. Between work and Kenji and everything else. We'll figure it out. Together. He reached across the table and after a moment's hesitation, she placed her hand in his. His palm was warm and steady. No rush. We'll take this at whatever pace feels right for you. They finished dessert and Jonathan paid the bill, waving away her offer to contribute with a firm but gentle refusal. When they stepped outside, the rain had stopped and the downtown square sparkled with Christmas lights. Couples strolled past, bundled in coats and scarves, and Christmas carols played from speakers hidden in the trees. I'll get you a cab, Jonathan said, pulling out his phone. The bus is fine. It's Christmas Eve, you've had a long day and you need to get home to your daughter. Let me do this. Again that gentle insistence that she accept kindness. Rochelle nodded, and within minutes a cab pulled up. Jonathan opened the door for her, then handed the driver several bills. This covers her fare and a generous tip. Take her safely too. He looked at Rochelle. She gave her address and Jonathan repeated it to the driver, who nodded. Before Rochelle could climb in, Jonathan touched her arm gently. Thank you for coming tonight. For pushing through your exhaustion and your worry to give this a chance. It means more than you know. Thank you for waiting, she replied. For being kind. For making this feel less terrifying than I expected. The feeling is mutual. He smiled. I'll call you tomorrow. We'll plan that second date. Rochelle climbed into the cab, and as it pulled away, she looked back to see Jonathan standing on the sidewalk, watching to make sure she left safely. The Christmas lights cast a warm glow over the scene, and for the first time in 3 years, Rochelle felt something she'd almost forgotten, hope. The cab ride home passed in a daze. Rochelle stared out the window at the decorated houses and lit up trees, replaying the evening in her mind. Had that really just happened? Had a successful, kind, handsome man really waited over an hour for her and then treated her like she mattered? Her phone buzzed. A text from Tamara. Well? How did it go? Did you kill me yet or thank me? Rochelle typed back. He waited. Over an hour. And he was perfect. Actually perfect. 3 dots appeared immediately then. I told you he was amazing. So there's a second date? Yes. Tomorrow he's calling to plan it. Rochelle Washington, you better not self-sabotage this. That man is 1 in a million. Let yourself be happy. The words echoed in Rochelle's mind as the cab pulled up to her apartment building. It was a modest complex in a neighborhood that was safe but far from fancy. Her unit was on the 2nd floor, and as she climbed the stairs she could hear Mrs. Chen's television through the wall. She knocked softly on her neighbor's door. Mrs. Chen, a kind Chinese woman in her 70s, opened it with a smile. How was your date, dear? Better than expected. How's Kenji? Sleeping like an angel. Fever is completely gone. We watched cartoons and had soup. She's in your apartment, I used your spare key. I hope that's okay. Of course. Thank you so much, Mrs. Chen. Let me pay you for tonight. Nonsense. You watch my cats when I visit my daughter. We help each other. That's what neighbors do. The elderly woman patted Rochelle's hand. Go check on your baby. And I want to hear all about this date tomorrow. Rochelle hugged her gratefully and went into her own apartment. It was small, just a 1-bedroom that she and Kenji shared, but it was clean and safe. Kenji was curled up on the bed, her stuffed dinosaur clutched in her arms, breathing peacefully. Rochelle checked her forehead. Cool. The fever really had broken. She changed out of her scrubs into pajamas, then slid into bed beside her daughter. Kenji stirred slightly. Mama? I'm here, baby. Did the prince like you? Rochelle smiled in the darkness. He's not a prince. But yes, I think he liked me. Good. You're the best mama. Everyone should like you. Kenji snuggled closer, already drifting back to sleep. Lying there with her daughter's warm weight against her side, Rochelle felt tears prick her eyes. She'd worked so hard for so long, juggling everything alone, trying to be enough for both of them. The thought that someone might want to be part of their lives, might want to share the load, was almost too much to hope for. But Jonathan had seemed genuine. He'd understood about Kenji's fever without hesitation. He'd treated Rochelle's struggles with respect, not pity. He'd made her feel valued. Don't get ahead of yourself, she whispered to the ceiling. It was one date. Let's see what happens next. But even as she said it, she couldn't quite suppress the flutter of excitement in her chest. The next morning, Christmas Day, Rochelle woke to Kenji bouncing on the bed. Mama, it's Christmas. Can we open presents now? Rochelle groaned and checked her phone. 7 in the morning. Of course. All right, baby. Let's see what Santa brought. They'd celebrated Christmas Eve before Rochelle's date, so Kenji had already opened most of her gifts. Second-hand books from the thrift store that Rochelle had carefully selected, a new set of crayons and coloring books, a small stuffed triceratops to add to her dinosaur collection. It wasn't much, but Kenji had been thrilled. This morning they made pancakes together, Kenji standing on a chair to help pour the batter. They watched Christmas movies and built a fort out of blankets in the living room. Normal things. Sweet things. The kind of simple Christmas that was all Rochelle could afford, but that seemed to be enough for her daughter. Around noon her phone rang. An unknown number. Rochelle's heart jumped. Hello. Merry Christmas, Rochelle. It's Jonathan. Merry Christmas. She walked into the bathroom for a bit of privacy, though Kenji was absorbed in her movie. How are you? Good. Better now that I'm talking to you. His voice was warm and genuine. How's Kenji feeling? Completely recovered. She's been bouncing around since 7 this morning. I'm glad. I was worried about her last night. He paused. Listen, I know this might be too soon, and please feel free to say no, but I was wondering if you and Kenji might want to have dinner with me tonight. Nothing fancy, just something casual. There's a diner I like that makes incredible burgers and has a great kids menu. My treat, obviously. Rochelle's first instinct was to say no. It was too fast, too much. But then she remembered Tamara's words, don't self-sabotage this. And Jonathan's words, let someone do something nice for you. That sounds wonderful, she heard herself say. What time? 6? I can pick you both up if that's easier. Actually, meeting there might be better. For Kenji's sake, you know. She hasn't met any men I've dated, and I want to keep things low pressure. That makes complete sense. Text me your address and I'll send you the diner location. Rochelle? Yes. Thank you for saying yes. I know trust doesn't come easy, especially when you have a child to protect. I appreciate you giving me a chance. After they hung up, Rochelle stood in the bathroom for a long moment, her heart racing. This was happening. She was doing this. She was letting someone new into their careful little world. Mama? Who was that? Kenji appeared in the doorway, clutching her triceratops. That was a friend. His name is Mr. Jonathan. Would you like to meet him for dinner tonight? At a restaurant with really good food. Kenji's eyes widened. Like a fancy place? Like a burger place. With French fries. Can I get a milkshake? Rochelle laughed. We'll see. But here's the important part, baby. Mr. Jonathan is someone Mama likes. He's very nice. But if you don't like him or if you feel uncomfortable at all, you tell me right away. Okay. Okay, Mama. Kenji tilted her head, studying her mother with wise 6-year-old eyes. Do you like him? Like in the movies? I might. But we just met, so we're getting to know each other. You're my most important person always. Nobody changes that. I know. Kenji hugged her mother's legs. You're my most important person too. But it might be nice to have someone else who loves us. The simple wisdom of children. Rochelle blinked back tears and hugged her daughter tight. That evening, Rochelle dressed carefully in jeans and a soft red sweater, not trying too hard but wanting to look nice. She braided Kenji's hair with colorful beads and let her wear her favorite purple dress with dinosaur sneakers. They took the bus to the diner, arriving 10 minutes early. Jonathan was already there waiting outside. He wore dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt, casual but put together. When he saw them approaching, his face lit up. You must be Kenji, he said, crouching down to her level. Your mom told me you love dinosaurs. Kenji, suddenly shy, pressed against Rochelle's leg. Yes. What's your favorite kind? Triceratops. They have 3 horns. That's an excellent choice. Did you know they were one of the last dinosaurs to exist before the extinction event? Kenji's eyes widened. You know about dinosaurs? A little bit. My niece loves them too. We watched a documentary together last month. He smiled at Rochelle. Hi. Hi. She felt suddenly nervous in a way she hadn't last night. This was different. This was introducing a man to her daughter, letting him into the most important part of her life. Shall we go in? I hear they have the best milkshakes in the city. Mama said maybe I could get one, Kenji said, her shyness fading in the face of potential ice cream. Then maybe has to become definitely. A milkshake on Christmas is basically required. Inside, the diner was cheerful and busy, with red vinyl booths and a long counter where a few solo diners sat eating pie. They slid into a booth, Kenji between Rochelle and the wall, and a friendly waitress brought them menus and crayons for Kenji. So, Kenji, Jonathan said after they'd ordered, what did you get for Christmas? Books and crayons and a new dinosaur. His name is Spike. She pulled the stuffed Triceratops from her backpack to show him. Spike is a great name. Very fierce. Jonathan examined the dinosaur with appropriate seriousness. What kind of books did you get? Kenji launched into a detailed explanation of her new stories, and Rochelle watched in amazement as Jonathan listened with genuine interest, asking follow-up questions and making comments that showed he was really paying attention. This wasn't a man tolerating a child to impress the mother. This was someone who actually enjoyed talking to Kenji. Their food arrived. Burgers and fries for all of them and a chocolate milkshake for Kenji that was so big her eyes went round. I can't drink all this. That's okay. Your mom and I will help. Jonathan winked at Rochelle, who found herself smiling. As they ate, the conversation flowed naturally. Jonathan told Kenji about his niece, whose name was Brianna and who was 7. He described the science museum they'd visited together, and Kenji listened with rapt attention. They have a whole room of dinosaur bones. Real ones, not copies. And you can watch paleontologists working on fossils through a big window. I want to be a paleontologist when I grow up, Kenji announced. I'm going to find dinosaurs. That's an amazing goal. The world needs more paleontologists. Jonathan looked at Rochelle. You must be very proud of her. Every day. Rochelle smoothed Kenji's braids affectionately. She's my whole world. I can see why. After dinner, Jonathan suggested a walk to see the Christmas lights in a nearby park. Kenji ran ahead slightly, staying within sight but giving them a bit of space. The park was beautiful, with trees wrapped in white lights and a massive illuminated nativity scene. She's wonderful, Jonathan said quietly. You've done an incredible job raising her. Thank you. It hasn't been easy. The best things rarely are. He glanced at her. Can I ask you something? And please be honest even if you think it might hurt my feelings. Okay. How much did Tamara tell you about me? About my financial situation? Rochelle felt her stomach tighten. She said you were successful in business. That you worked in technology and real estate. Why? Because I wasn't entirely honest last night. Or rather, I wasn't specific. He stopped walking, turning to face her. I'm not just successful, Rochelle. I'm very wealthy. The software company I sold went for several $100 million. The real estate investments have multiplied that. I'm what most people would call a billionaire. The word hit Rochelle like a physical blow. Billionaire. She'd thought he was comfortable, maybe well off, the kind of successful professional who could afford nice restaurants and taxis. But billionaire? That was a different universe. I don't understand. Why are you telling me this? Because I want to be honest with you. And because last night you mentioned struggling with bills and working 2 jobs, and I realized you had no idea who you were talking to. I don't want you to feel embarrassed or like you said too much. Your struggles are real regardless of my bank account. Rochelle felt heat flood her face. She'd complained to a billionaire about her apartment deposit and medical copays. She'd split a piece of cake with someone who could probably buy the restaurant. The humiliation was crushing. Hey. Jonathan's voice was gentle. He touched her arm lightly. Don't do that. Don't retreat into embarrassment. Your life is your life. My money doesn't make your challenges less real or less difficult. Doesn't it though? I mean, you're standing there telling me you're a billionaire while I'm worried about whether I can afford new shoes for Kenji next month. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. And that's exactly why I'm telling you now. Because those worries are valid. Because struggling to provide for your child while working yourself to exhaustion is real and hard and shouldn't be happening to someone as dedicated as you. My wealth doesn't diminish your experience. If anything, it makes me angry that people like you have to work so hard just to survive. Kenji ran back to them, oblivious to the tension. Mama, can we see the angels? They have light-up angels over there. Sure, baby. Rochelle's voice was strained. As Kenji ran ahead again, Jonathan spoke quietly. I'm sorry. I should have told you last night. I like that you didn't know. That you talked to me like a normal person instead of a walking bank account. But that wasn't fair to you. I apologize. Rochelle took a deep breath, trying to process her emotions. I need to think about this. Of course. Take all the time you need. He paused. But can I say one more thing? What? My money is just that. Money. It doesn't define who I am any more than your financial situation defines who you are. I'm still the guy who waited over an hour for you at a restaurant. I'm still the person who wants to get to know you and your daughter. The numbers in my bank account don't change that. Rochelle looked at him, at his earnest expression and patient eyes. He meant it. He really meant it. Okay, she said finally. Okay. But I need you to understand something too. I'm not looking for someone to rescue me. I'm not a charity case. If we do this, if we keep seeing each other, it has to be because we actually like each other. Not because you feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for you. I admire you. There's a huge difference. He smiled slightly. And for the record, I already like you. Very much. Money aside, you're smart and strong and an amazing mother. That's what matters to me. They stood there in the park, Christmas lights twinkling around them, while Kenji examined the illuminated angels. This was a turning point, Rochelle realized. She could walk away now, protect herself and Kenji from the complications of dating someone from such a different world. Or she could take a leap of faith. Okay, she said again, softer this time. Let's keep seeing each other. But slowly. And you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll never treat me like I'm less than you because I have less money. And promise me you'll let me pay my own way sometimes, even if it's just coffee. I need to feel like an equal partner, not someone being taken care of. Jonathan nodded slowly. I promise. Though I have to tell you, letting people accept help when they need it is also a form of respect. Sometimes the kindest thing is to let someone do something nice for you. Then we'll figure out the balance together. She held out her hand. Deal? He shook it and his smile was genuine and warm. Deal. Kenji ran back over, breathless and excited. Mama, Mr. Jonathan, did you see the angels? They're so pretty. We saw them, baby. They're beautiful. Rochelle squeezed her daughter's hand, then made a decision. Mr. Jonathan, would you like to come over for hot chocolate? It's not fancy, but it's warm and it's Christmas. The surprise and pleasure on his face was worth the vulnerability of the invitation. I would love that. They took the bus back to Rochelle's apartment, Kenji chattering the whole way about dinosaurs and angels and Christmas lights. When they arrived, Rochelle felt a moment of self-consciousness about her small, modest home. But Jonathan stepped inside and immediately said, This is lovely. It's clear a lot of love lives here. He meant it. She could tell he meant it. They made hot chocolate together, Kenji helping to stir while Rochelle added marshmallows. They sat on the couch, watching the small artificial tree Rochelle had set up blink with colored lights. It was simple and peaceful and real. Thank you for this, Jonathan said quietly while Kenji dozed against Rochelle's shoulder, worn out from excitement. For trusting me enough to let me into your home. Thank you for being worth trusting. Rochelle smiled. This is the best Christmas I've had in years. Mine too. He met her eyes. And if you'll let me, I'd like to help make future ones even better. Not with money or things, but just by being here. By being part of this. Rochelle felt tears prick her eyes. I'd like that too. As the evening wound down and Jonathan prepared to leave, Kenji woke up long enough to give him a sleepy hug. Will we see you again, Mr. Jonathan? If your mom says it's okay, I'd like to see you both very often. I say it's okay. Kenji looked at her mother for confirmation. Right, Mama? Right, baby. Rochelle walked Jonathan to the door. Thank you for tonight. For everything. Thank you for giving me a chance. He paused on the threshold. Can I call you tomorrow? Please do. He smiled and then he was gone, walking down the stairs to where his car was parked. Rochelle watched him go, then closed the door and leaned against it. Mama? Kenji was watching her from the couch. Do you like Mr. Jonathan? I do, baby. Very much. Good. He's nice. And he knows about dinosaurs. As if that settled everything. Maybe it did. Maybe sometimes things really could be that simple. A kind man, a shared interest, an open heart. Maybe that was enough to build something on. Rochelle carried Kenji to bed, tucked her in with Spike the Triceratops, and whispered, "Sweet dreams, baby. Tomorrow's going to be a good day." And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed it. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a strange, wonderful blur. Jonathan called every day, sometimes just to say hello, sometimes for longer conversations that stretched late into the evening after Kenji was asleep. They texted throughout the day, silly messages and thoughtful questions, and slowly building intimacy. On December 28th, he invited them to dinner again, this time at a family-style Italian restaurant where Kenji could be as loud as she wanted without judgment. They ate spaghetti and garlic bread, and Jonathan taught Kenji how to twirl her pasta on a fork properly. "My dad taught me this when I was about your age," he said, demonstrating the technique. "It's all in the wrist." "You don't talk about your dad much," Rochelle observed. "Is he still around?" Jonathan's smile faded slightly. "He passed away when I was 12. Heart attack. It was sudden. I'm so sorry. It was a long time ago. But yeah, it was hard. My mom had to work even more after that, trying to keep us afloat. My sister and I learned to take care of ourselves pretty young." He paused. "That's part of why I worked so hard to build my business. I never wanted my mom to struggle like that again. By the time my company sold, I was able to buy her a house, make sure she was comfortable. That must have felt good." "It did. She cried for an hour when I handed her the keys. Kept saying she didn't deserve it, that it was too much." He smiled at the memory. "But she deserved it more than anyone. She sacrificed everything for us." Rochelle felt a kinship with his mother, another woman who'd worked herself to exhaustion for her children. "Is she still in the area?" "She lives about an hour north in a little town near the lake. She loves it there. My sister lives nearby with her husband and daughter, so Mom gets to see Brianna all the time." He looked at Kenji, who was focused intently on her pasta twirling. "I'd like you to meet them sometime. If you're comfortable with that." "I'd like that too. But maybe we wait a little bit? I don't want to overwhelm Kenji." "Absolutely. We move at your pace. Always." After dinner they walked through downtown again. The Christmas decorations were still up, giving the city a festive glow. Kenji held both their hands, swinging between them and giggling when they lifted her off the ground. "Higher, higher," she shrieked with delight. Jonathan caught Rochelle's eye over Kenji's head, and they shared a smile. This felt natural, Rochelle realized. The three of them together felt right in a way she hadn't expected. "I have to tell you something," Jonathan said after they'd set Kenji down and she'd run ahead to look in a toy store window. "About money. About helping." Rochelle's guard went up immediately. "Jonathan. Just hear me out. Please." He took a breath. "You mentioned at Christmas that you've been saving for months to give Kenji a good holiday. And at the restaurant on Christmas Eve, you said something about a deposit for a better apartment. I know you don't want to feel like a charity case, and I respect that. But there are some things I'd really like to help with if you'll let me." "What kind of things?" "Kenji's medical bills from the emergency clinic. I know you have insurance, but there's still a copay and probably other costs. Let me take care of that." He held up a hand when she started to protest. "Not because you can't handle it, but because I can handle it easily, and it would give me peace of mind knowing you're not stressed about it." Rochelle thought about the bill sitting on her kitchen counter. $340 after insurance. Not crushing, but not easy either. She planned to put it on her credit card and pay it off over a few months. "I don't know. What if I frame it differently? What if I say that I care about you and Kenji, and people who care about each other help when they can? Not out of pity or obligation, but because that's what you do when you care." Put that way, it was harder to argue. Rochelle remembered her own words from Christmas. Kindness and love should lead. Could she really refuse help out of pride when accepting it would make her life easier? "Okay," she said slowly. "The medical bills. But that's it for now. I need to feel like I'm not taking advantage." "You're not. You could never." He smiled. "And actually, about that apartment deposit. I was thinking about it and I want to make you an offer. Please don't answer right away, just think about it." "What offer?" "Let me cover the deposit and first month's rent for the apartment you wanted. Before you say no, let me explain why. You're working 2 jobs to survive, which means you're exhausted all the time and barely seeing Kenji. If I help with the apartment, you could potentially drop the retail job and have more time with your daughter. That's not me rescuing you. That's me helping you create the life you deserve." The offer was tempting. So tempting. The apartment she'd been looking at was in a better neighborhood, closer to Kenji's school, with 2 bedrooms so her daughter could have her own space. It was perfect. But the deposit plus first and last month's rent was more than $3,000, an impossible sum. That's a lot of money, she said quietly. Not to me. To me, it's the cost of knowing that someone I care about is safe and comfortable and not killing herself trying to make ends meet. He touched her arm gently. Think about it. You don't have to decide now. But please consider it. For Kenji's sake if not your own. Rochelle looked at her daughter, still entranced by the toy store window display. Kenji deserved a better apartment, a safer neighborhood, more time with her mother. Could Rochelle really deny her that because of her own pride? I'll think about it, she promised. That's all I ask. They collected Kenji and headed back toward the bus stop. Jonathan walked them there but then said, "Actually, my car's just around the corner. Let me drive you home. It's too cold for the bus." Jonathan. It's practical, not charity. The bus in December with a 6-year-old is miserable. Let me do this. Rochelle laughed despite herself. You're very persistent. Only about things that matter. His car was nice but not ostentatious. A dark sedan that was clearly expensive but not flashy. Kenji fell asleep in the back seat almost immediately, worn out from dinner and excitement. In the front seat, Rochelle and Jonathan talked quietly about work, about books they'd read, about everything and nothing. I have a question, Jonathan said as they neared her apartment. New Year's Eve is in a few days. I usually spend it with my family at my mom's house. It's pretty low-key, just dinner and games and watching the ball drop. Would you and Kenji want to come? No pressure if it's too soon to meet everyone. Rochelle's first instinct was to refuse. Meeting his family felt like a big step, an acknowledgement that this was serious. But wasn't it? Wasn't she already falling for this man who treated her daughter with kindness and patience, who listened to her worries without judgment, who made her feel valued? I'd need to check if I'm working, she said. But if I'm off, yes. I think Kenji would love it. And I'd like to meet your family. Really? His pleasure was obvious. Really? Though I'm nervous about meeting your mom. What if she doesn't like me? She'll love you. Trust me. He pulled up outside her building. My mom has excellent taste in people. She's going to see exactly what I see, someone special. Rochelle felt warmth spread through her chest. When was the last time someone had called her special? When was the last time someone had looked at her the way Jonathan was looking at her now, like she was valuable and wanted? She leaned across the console and kissed his cheek, a quick brush of lips that still made her heart race. Thank you. For everything. Thank you for trusting me. He helped her lift Kenji from the back seat, and the little girl barely stirred as Rochelle carried her inside. Upstairs, as Rochelle tucked Kenji into bed, her daughter murmured, I like Mr. Jonathan, Mama. Me too, baby. Me too. That night, lying in bed, Rochelle thought about Jonathan's offer. The apartment, the medical bills, the possibility of dropping her second job. It would change everything. She'd have time to actually be present with Kenji instead of constantly rushing between work and sleep. She could take her daughter to the park on Saturdays instead of standing behind a retail counter. They could have dinner together every night instead of eating in shifts. The thought of accepting such a large gift still made her uncomfortable. But more uncomfortable was the thought of refusing it out of pride and condemning herself and Kenji to continued exhaustion and struggle. That wasn't noble. That was just stubborn. She picked up her phone and texted Jonathan, I've been thinking about your offer. The apartment. If you're serious about it, I'd like to accept. With gratitude and the understanding that I'm going to pay you back someday, even if it takes years. His response came immediately, I'm completely serious. And there's nothing to pay back. This is a gift, freely given because I care about you both. Let's look at apartments this weekend. Okay. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. I think I do. Sleep well, Rochelle. Dream about your new home. She did dream that night, not of apartments but of a future that suddenly seemed possible. A future where she wasn't alone, where someone stood beside her, where love and kindness weren't just abstract concepts but daily realities. The next few days were a whirlwind of apartment hunting. Jonathan picked them up each morning, and they toured units in better neighborhoods with good schools and safe streets. Kenji ran through each apartment, declaring which room would be hers and where her dinosaurs would go. Finally they found it. A 2-bedroom apartment on the 3rd floor of a well-maintained building. The neighborhood was clean and friendly, with a park 2 blocks away and Kenji's school within walking distance. The apartment had hardwood floors and big windows that let in plenty of light. The kitchen was small but functional, and there was even a washer and dryer in the unit. This is the one, Rochelle said, standing in the living room and imagining their furniture arranged, their lives unfolding here. This is perfect. Then let's make it happen. Jonathan spoke with the landlord, who clearly recognized him and treated him with deference. Within an hour, the paperwork was signed. Jonathan wrote a check for the deposit and 3 months' rent, waving away Rochelle's attempts to contribute. I got this. You focus on packing and getting ready to move. I can't believe this is happening. Rochelle felt tears threatening. A month ago, I thought we'd be in that cramped one-bedroom forever. Now we have this, and it's because of you. It's because you deserved better and were brave enough to accept help when it was offered. That takes strength, Rochelle. Don't discount that. Moving day came 2 days before New Year's Eve. Jonathan showed up with his brother-in-law Marcus, who he'd asked permission to include, and a rental truck. They loaded Rochelle's modest possessions efficiently, making jokes and telling stories that made even the hard work feel light. At the new apartment they unpacked just as quickly. Mrs. Chun came to say goodbye, tears in her eyes as she hugged Rochelle and Kenji. You call me if you need anything. And you bring this beautiful girl to visit her Auntie Chen, yes? Of course. Every week. I promise. By evening the new apartment was set up. Kenji had her own room for the first time ever, decorated with her dinosaur posters and stuffed animals. Rochelle's bedroom felt spacious after years of sharing. The kitchen was stocked with groceries Jonathan had insisted on buying. After Marcus left, Jonathan made dinner while Rochelle and Kenji unpacked the last few boxes. It was such a domestic scene, so natural, that it made Rochelle's heart ache with hope and possibility. This is nice, she said, coming into the kitchen where Jonathan was stirring pasta sauce. Having someone cook for me. Get used to it. I'm a pretty good cook when given the chance. He smiled at her. You look happy. I'm happy. Happier than I've been in years. She leaned against the counter. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. Then show me by building a good life here. By spending time with Kenji. By taking care of yourself. That's all the thanks I need. They ate dinner together, the three of them in the new apartment that already felt like home. Kenji chattered about school starting again next week and how she couldn't wait to tell her friends about her new room. Rochelle felt a peace she'd almost forgotten was possible. After dinner, after Kenji was tucked into her own bed in her own room, Jonathan prepared to leave. At the door Rochelle stopped him. New Year's Eve. Your mom's house. We're still invited? Absolutely. I'll pick you both up at 5. I'm nervous. Don't be. They're going to love you. Just like I. He stopped, the words hanging in the air unspoken but present nonetheless. Just like I love you. He hadn't said it but Rochelle heard it anyway. And the scary thing was she felt the same way. After only a week she was falling in love with this man who'd waited for her at a restaurant, who'd accepted her daughter without hesitation, who'd given them a better life without making her feel small. Just like you what? She prompted gently. Just like I care about you. Very much. He smiled. We should probably save the bigger words for when we've known each other more than a week. Probably wise. But she was smiling too. He kissed her forehead, gentle and sweet, and then he was gone. Rochelle locked the door and walked through her new apartment, turning off lights and checking on Kenji one more time. Her daughter was fast asleep, one arm around Spike the dinosaur, a small smile on her face. We're going to be okay, baby, Rochelle whispered. Better than okay. We're going to be happy. And walking to her own room, her own space, in this safe and beautiful apartment, Rochelle believed it with her whole heart. New Year's Eve arrived cold and clear. Rochelle stood in front of her closet, staring at her limited wardrobe with mild panic. Meeting Jonathan's family felt significant, like crossing a threshold into something more serious and permanent. She wanted to make a good impression. Finally, she settled on dark jeans and a forest green sweater that Tamara had given her last Christmas. It was simple but flattering, and the color brought out the warmth in her brown skin. She braided Kenji's hair again and let her wear her favorite maroon dress with white tights. We look pretty, Mama, Kenji announced, admiring herself in the mirror. We look perfect, Rochelle agreed, though her stomach was churning with nerves. Jonathan arrived exactly at 5 as promised. He wore dark slacks and a burgundy button-down that made him look both handsome and approachable. His smile when he saw them was bright and genuine. You both look beautiful. You clean up nice yourself. Rochelle grabbed the pie she'd made the night before, apple with a lattice crust. She might not have money but she had skills and she wanted to contribute something to the evening. The drive to Jonathan's mother's house took about an hour, heading north into smaller towns and eventually rural areas. They talked and laughed, and Kenji sang songs from her favorite cartoons until they pulled up to a modest but well-maintained house with a wraparound porch and a yard full of old trees. "This is beautiful," Rochelle said honestly. It was the kind of house she'd dreamed about as a child, the kind that spoke of stability and roots and family dinners. "Mom loves it. She's got a garden in the back that she works on all summer." Jonathan helped them out of the car. "Fair warning, she's going to hug you immediately. She's a hugger." He wasn't wrong. The front door opened before they reached it, and a small African-American woman with graying hair and a warm smile rushed out. "You must be Rochelle and Kenji. I'm Diane. I'm so happy to meet you both." She pulled Rochelle into a tight hug before stepping back to admire Kenji. "And look at you, sweetheart. Jonathan told me you love dinosaurs." Kenji nodded, suddenly shy again. "Well, you're going to love Brianna then. She's inside waiting to show you her fossil collection. Come on in, it's freezing out here." The house was warm and welcoming, decorated for the holidays with a tree in the corner and garlands over the doorways. A tall African-American man stood up from the couch as they entered, and Jonathan made introductions. "Rochelle, Kenji, this is my brother-in-law Marcus and my sister Candace." Candace was Jonathan's age, with kind eyes and her mother's warm smile. Marcus shook Rochelle's hand with genuine friendliness. And bouncing on the couch was Brianna, who immediately zeroed in on Kenji. "Do you want to see my room? I have dinosaur models and real fossils and everything." Kenji looked at Rochelle for permission. "Can I, Mama?" "Of course. Be polite, okay?" The two girls disappeared upstairs, leaving the adults to gather in the living room. Diane took Rochelle's pie with delight. "This looks homemade. Did you make this yourself?" "Yes, ma'am. It's just apple, but..." "Just apple? Apple pie is a classic. Thank you, dear." This was thoughtful. Diane set the pie in the kitchen and returned, settling into an armchair and studying Rochelle with open curiosity. "So you're a nurse. Jonathan mentioned that. What made you go into nursing?" Rochelle relaxed slightly. This was familiar territory. "I wanted to help people. When I was a kid, my grandmother got very sick, and the nurses at the hospital were so kind to our family. They made a terrible situation bearable. I wanted to be that for other people." "That's a beautiful reason. And you work in pediatrics?" "Yes, at County General. I love working with kids. They're resilient and brave even when they're scared." The conversation flowed naturally from there. Candace asked about Kenji, and Rochelle found herself sharing stories about her daughter's dinosaur obsession and her determination to be a paleontologist. Jonathan sat beside her on the couch, his presence solid and reassuring. Dinner was a casual affair, everyone gathering around a large table in the dining room. The girls chattered about dinosaurs while the adults talked about everything from current events to family memories. Diane told embarrassing stories about Jonathan's childhood that made everyone laugh. "He was such a serious little boy," Diane said, smiling at her son. "Always reading, always asking questions. When his father died, he got even more serious. Took on so much responsibility." "Someone had to," Jonathan said lightly, but Rochelle heard the weight beneath the words. "You did more than enough," Diane said firmly. "More than any child should have to do." After dinner they played board games while the kids built a blanket fort in the living room. It was easy and comfortable, and Rochelle felt herself relaxing completely. This was family, the kind she'd always wanted Kenji to have. Around 10, Diane brought out champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for the kids. As midnight approached, they gathered around the television to watch the ball drop in Times Square. "Time for resolutions," Candace announced. "Who's going first?" "I resolve to find more fossils," Brianna said seriously. "I resolve to be the best paleontologist ever," Kenji added. The adults laughed and shared their own resolutions. When it came to Jonathan, he looked at Rochelle and said simply, "I resolve to build something lasting with the people I care about." The words hung in the air, significant and sincere. Rochelle felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them back. "My resolution is to accept love and help with gratitude," she said softly. "And to build a good life for my daughter." Midnight came with cheers and hugs. Jonathan kissed Rochelle's cheek, a sweet gesture that felt full of promise. Kenji and Brianna jumped around excitedly, already best friends despite just meeting. As they prepared to leave around 1 in the morning, Diane pulled Rochelle aside. "I'm glad Jonathan found you," she said quietly. "I've been worried about him. He works so hard, does so much for everyone else but doesn't let anyone take care of him. I think you might change that." "I hope so. He's certainly changing my life." "Good. You both deserve happiness." Diane hugged her again. "You're welcome here anytime." And I mean that. This is family now. The drive home was quiet, both Rochelle and Kenji exhausted but content. Kenji fell asleep within minutes, and Jonathan reached over to take Rochelle's hand. Thank you for coming tonight. For meeting my family. Thank you for inviting us. Your mom is wonderful. She really likes you. I could tell. He paused. I have something to tell you. Something important. Rochelle's heart skipped. What? Remember how I mentioned my charity foundation the other night? The one that random person at the restaurant recognized me for? Yes. I didn't give you the full details. The foundation is specifically designed to help single parents. We provide housing assistance, childcare subsidies, educational grants, things like that. I started it because I saw how hard my mom struggled, and I wanted to help other people in similar situations. That's amazing, Jonathan. The thing is, he took a breath. The foundation launched last month with a major press release. My name and face were all over the business news. I'm surprised you didn't see it, but I guess you were too busy working to watch the news. Rochelle felt a flutter of apprehension. Why does that matter? Because I'm not just successful, Rochelle. I'm kind of famous in the business world. The foundation launch was a big deal. Articles were written, interviews were done. And some of those articles mentioned my net worth. Which is around $2 billion. Give or take. The number was so large it didn't feel real. 2 billion. Rochelle tried to wrap her mind around it and couldn't. That was movie star money, tech giant money, impossible money. I should have told you sooner, Jonathan continued when she didn't respond. But I like that you didn't know. That you saw me as just Jonathan, not as a walking bank account or a potential solution to your problems. I wanted you to like me for me. I do like you for you. Rochelle's voice came out smaller than she intended. But this is a lot to process. I know. And I'm sorry I wasn't more upfront. But everything I've said and done has been genuine. The money doesn't change how I feel about you or how I want to be part of your life. They pulled up outside Rochelle's new apartment, and Jonathan turned off the car. Kenji was still asleep in the back, snoring softly. Can I ask you something? Rochelle said. And I need you to be honest. Anything. Is this some kind of project for you? The struggling single mother and her daughter? Are we your charity case that makes you feel good about yourself? The hurt that flashed across his face was genuine. Is that what you think? I don't know what to think. You meet me, find out I'm barely getting by, and suddenly you're paying for apartments and medical bills and inviting us into your family. How is that not charity? It's charity if it's impersonal and detached. It's love when it's personal and involved. He reached for her hand. Rochelle, I care about you. Not because you need help, but because you're smart and strong and funny and beautiful and an incredible mother. The fact that I can help make your life easier is a bonus, not the point. How do I know that's true? Because I'm not looking for gratitude or recognition. I'm looking for partnership. Someone to share my life with, someone whose life I can share. The money is just a tool. It's not the relationship. Rochelle wanted to believe him. She did believe him, mostly. But the sheer scale of his wealth was overwhelming. $2 billion. She made $40,000 a year as a nurse. They were from different worlds. I need some time, she said finally, to process all of this. It's not that I don't care about you, because I do. But this is bigger than I expected. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. He squeezed her hand gently. But please don't pull away completely. Don't let the money scare you off. At the end of the day, I'm still just the guy who waited over an hour for you at a restaurant. That hasn't changed. Rochelle nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She collected Kenji from the back seat, and Jonathan walked them upstairs to their apartment. At the door, he kissed her forehead again. Happy New Year, Rochelle. May this year bring you everything you deserve. Happy New Year, Jonathan. Inside, after putting Kenji to bed, Rochelle sat on the couch in her new living room and stared at the wall. $2 billion. She pulled out her phone and searched his name. Sure enough, dozens of articles popped up. Jonathan Pierce launches Revolutionary Foundation. Billionaire businessman gives back. From poverty to billions, the Jonathan Pierce story. She read several articles, learning details about his company, his investments, his philanthropy. There were photos of him at charity events, at business conferences, shaking hands with politicians and celebrities. This was a world she knew nothing about. But then she thought about the man who'd played board games with her daughter tonight. The man who'd listened to his mother's stories with patience and love. The man who'd looked at Rochelle like she was precious and valuable, not because of what he could do for her but because of who she was. Maybe the money didn't matter. Maybe what mattered was the person beneath the billions, the man who'd come from poverty himself and remembered what it felt like to struggle. The man who'd chosen to spend his New Year's Eve with her family instead of at some exclusive party. Rochelle's phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. I hope I didn't scare you off. But if I did, I understand. Just know that my feelings are real, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, You didn't scare me off. You surprised me. Big difference. Let's talk tomorrow? I'd like that. Sleep well. You too. Rochelle set down her phone and walked to Kenji's room. Her daughter was sprawled across her bed, hair messy on the pillow, Spike the dinosaur tucked under one arm. She looked peaceful and safe and happy. That's what mattered. Not billions of dollars or business empires or charity foundations. Just this. Her daughter, safe and loved in a good home with the possibility of a good life ahead. And if Jonathan wanted to be part of that life, if his feelings were genuine and his intentions pure, then maybe Rochelle could let go of her fear and pride. Maybe she could accept that sometimes, kindness came in overwhelming packages. Maybe she could trust that love didn't have to be complicated or conditional. Maybe, just maybe, she could let herself be happy. The new year brought renewed energy to Rochelle's life. The new apartment felt like a fresh start, and despite her lingering concerns about Jonathan's wealth, she couldn't deny how much easier life had become. Walking Kenji to school instead of rushing her to the bus, having a second bedroom so they both had space, coming home to a safe neighborhood where kids played outside and neighbors smiled at each other. True to his word, Jonathan had also paid Kenji's medical bills from the emergency clinic. The relief Rochelle felt when she received the notification that her balance was zero was almost overwhelming. No more anxiety about credit card payments, no more choosing between bills to pay first. Jonathan called 3 days into January, and they finally had the conversation they'd postponed New Year's night. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the full extent of my wealth earlier, he said. I should have been completely honest from the start. I understand why you didn't. I probably would have run away if you'd led with, Hi, I'm a billionaire. Rochelle laughed softly. But I've been thinking about it and I've come to a conclusion. What's that? The money is part of who you are, but it's not all of who you are. You're also kind and patient and good with Kenji and you make me laugh. Those are the things that matter to me. So I'm choosing to focus on that and not freak out about the rest. That's very wise. And very generous of you. She could hear the smile in his voice. Does this mean we're okay? That we can keep seeing each other? It means we're definitely okay. When can I see you again? How about tonight? I could bring dinner over, something simple. We could just hang out, the three of us. That sounds perfect. Jonathan showed up that evening with Thai food and a documentary about dinosaurs that he'd found for Kenji. They ate on the living room floor, picnic style, and watched the documentary while Kenji asked a million questions that Jonathan patiently answered. After Kenji went to bed, Rochelle and Jonathan stayed up talking. She told him about her day at the hospital, about a little boy who'd been terrified of his surgery until Rochelle brought him a stuffed animal and sat with him. He told her about a new property development he was considering and asked for her perspective. You really want my opinion? I don't know anything about real estate. You know about neighborhoods and what makes them livable. You know what families need. That's more valuable than any market analysis. He was serious, not patronizing. I'm thinking of building affordable housing, mixed-income units so people from different economic backgrounds can live together. But I want to make sure it's done right, that it actually serves the community. They talked for over an hour about community centers and playgrounds and access to good schools. Jonathan took notes on his phone, genuinely interested in her ideas. It felt good to be asked, to have her perspective valued. Thank you for this, he said finally. For sharing your thoughts. You've given me a lot to think about. Thank you for asking. For treating my opinions like they matter. They do matter. You matter. He reached for her hand. Rochelle, I want to talk about something. Another offer. And before you say no, please just listen to the whole thing. Rochelle felt her defenses rise but forced herself to stay open. Okay. I'm listening. You're still working 2 jobs. The apartment has helped, but you're still exhausted all the time because you're at the hospital all week and the retail store on weekends. That's 60+ hours while also raising Kenji alone. I know. But the hospital doesn't pay enough to cover everything, and I need the second job. What if you didn't? What if I set up a trust fund for you and Kenji? Nothing huge, just enough to cover your monthly expenses so you could drop the retail job and focus on nursing and being a mom. You'd still be working, still be independent, just not killing yourself in the process. Rochelle's first instinct was to refuse. It was too much, too generous, too close to being kept. But she forced herself to really consider it. What would life look like if she only worked one job? She could pick Kenji up from school every day. They could have full weekends together. She could sleep more than 5 hours a night. How much money are we talking about? Enough to cover your rent, utilities, food, and basic expenses. Maybe $25,000 a year on top of your nursing salary. It would go into an account in your name and you'd use it as needed. It's not about control or making you dependent. It's about giving you breathing room. $25,000 a year. That was more than she made at the retail job, and it would let her have her life back. But accepting it felt enormous, like crossing a line into territory she wasn't sure about. Okay, I need to pause here and ask you something. Do you think Rochelle should accept this offer? Should she let Jonathan help her create a better life, even if it means accepting large amounts of money from someone she's only known a month? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. And if you're enjoying this story, please subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Now let's see what Rochelle decides. I don't know, she said honestly. It feels like too much. Why? Because of how much it is, or because accepting help feels uncomfortable? Both. I've been taking care of myself and Kenji for years. Accepting money from you, even in a trust, feels like giving up control. It's not giving up control. It's accepting support. There's a difference. Jonathan squeezed her hand gently. Let me ask you this. If the situations were reversed, if you had billions and I was struggling, would you want to help me? Of course. Then why can't you let me do the same? Why is it okay for you to give but not to receive? It was a fair point. Rochelle thought about all the times she'd helped friends or family when they needed it, never expecting repayment. She'd given freely because she cared. Wasn't that what Jonathan was doing? You're really good at logical arguments, she said wryly. I'm motivated. I care about you and Kenji. I want to see you thrive, not just survive. He paused. Think about it this way. The trust fund isn't about me controlling you or making you dependent. It's about removing obstacles so you can build the life you want. You'd still work as a nurse because you love it. You'd still be independent and capable. You'd just have more time and energy for the things that matter. When he put it that way, it was harder to argue. Rochelle thought about Kenji, about the time they could spend together if she wasn't always exhausted. About how she could be more present, more patient, more able to enjoy motherhood instead of constantly stressed about money. If I say yes, she said slowly, I need to know this isn't about creating some weird power dynamic. That you won't hold this over me or use it to control my decisions. I would never do that. The money would be yours, no strings attached. You could spend it however you wanted, and if you ever decided you didn't want it anymore, you could walk away completely. I'm not trying to trap you or make you dependent. I'm trying to help someone I care about. Rochelle took a deep breath. Okay, yes, I'll accept the trust fund. With gratitude and with the understanding that this is about partnership, not charity. Absolutely about partnership. Jonathan smiled, relief clear on his face. Thank you for trusting me enough to say yes. Thank you for caring enough to offer. You have no idea what this means. I think I do. He pulled her into a hug and Rochelle let herself lean into his warmth and strength. This was okay. This was good. She was letting someone help her, and the world wasn't ending. The next week, Jonathan set up the trust fund through his lawyers. Rochelle met with them to sign the paperwork, and they explained clearly that the money was hers, that Jonathan had no access to it and no control over how she used it. It was structured to deposit monthly, covering her expenses with a small buffer. The first deposit hit on January 15th. Rochelle stared at her bank account balance, unable to quite believe it was real. For the first time in years, she had financial breathing room. She didn't have to count pennies or choose between bills. She could just live. That weekend, she gave her 2 weeks' notice at the retail store. Her manager was understanding, even happy for her. You deserve better than this place, the woman said kindly. You're a great worker, but I always thought you were overqualified for retail. I hope whatever comes next is amazing. It already is, Rochelle replied honestly. Her last day at the store was on February 1st. She came home that evening feeling lighter than she had in years. Kenji was at the table doing homework and Rochelle made dinner without rushing, actually enjoying the process. Mama, you're humming, Kenji observed. I'm happy, baby. Really happy. Is it because of Mr. Jonathan? Partly. But mostly it's because we get to spend more time together now. No more weekends with Mama at work. Really? Kenji's face lit up. We can do stuff together? Every weekend. Park, library, wherever you want. Kenji launched herself at Rochelle, hugging tight. You're the best mama ever. And you're the best daughter ever. Rochelle kissed her forehead. We're going to have such a good life, Kenji. I promise. That evening, after Kenji was in bed, Rochelle called Jonathan. Today was my last day at the retail store. How do you feel? Free. Exhausted and free. Like I can finally breathe. She paused. Thank you. This is all because of you, and I know I don't say it enough, but thank you. You're welcome. But you don't have to thank me. Seeing you happy is more than enough. He paused. How would you feel about dinner this week? Just the two of us. I could arrange a babysitter for Kenji. A real date? Without my 6-year-old chaperone? Exactly. I like Kenji very much, but I'd also like some adult time with her mother. Rochelle felt a flutter of excitement. I'd like that too. When? Friday night? 7 o'clock. It's a date. Friday came and Jonathan arrived to pick her up while Mrs. Chen, who'd moved to be closer to her daughter but visited often, babysat Kenji. Rochelle wore a blue dress she'd bought with money from the trust fund, the first new dress she'd purchased in over a year. Jonathan's eyes widened appreciatively when he saw her. You look stunning. You don't look so bad yourself. He'd chosen a restaurant that was nice but not intimidating, with good food and a relaxed atmosphere. They talked about everything: childhood memories, favorite books, dreams for the future. Jonathan told her about his plans to expand the foundation, to help more single parents build stable lives. I want to do more than just give money, he explained. I want to create pathways to sustainable independence. Job training, education support, career counseling. Real help that empowers people. That's amazing. You're going to change so many lives. I hope so. But I learned something important from you. He reached across the table for her hand. I learned that sometimes the most valuable thing you can give someone isn't a program or a plan. It's just genuine care and support. Being there when they need you. Believing in them. You do that already. You did it for me. And you've done it for me too. You make me better. You make me think about what really matters. He paused, seeming nervous for the first time that evening. Rochelle, I know we've only known each other a little over a month. And I know there's still a lot for us to learn about each other. But I need you to know something. What? I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I think I've already fallen. You and Kenji, you've become the most important part of my life. And I want to be part of yours, for as long as you'll have me. Rochelle's breath caught. The words she'd sensed on New Year's Eve, the feelings she'd been trying not to rush, all of it crystallized in this moment. And she realized she felt the same way. I'm falling in love with you too, she said softly. I've been trying to be practical and careful. But I can't help it. You're kind and patient and good, and you make me feel valued and seen. I love you, Jonathan. He stood up, came around the table and kissed her. It was their first real kiss, gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. This is the best date I've ever had, he said. Mine too. They left the restaurant and walked through the downtown area, hand in hand, talking about the future. About slow steps and building trust. About introducing Kenji to the concept of them as a couple. About all the beautiful possibilities ahead. I don't want to rush this, Rochelle said. For Kenji's sake and ours. But I also don't want to pretend I don't feel what I feel. We'll go at whatever pace feels right. No pressure, no expectations. Just honesty and care. When he dropped her off that night, Jonathan kissed her again, longer this time, and Rochelle felt her whole body come alive with hope and desire and the sweet anticipation of new love. I'll call you tomorrow, he promised. You better. Inside, Mrs. Chen gave her a knowing smile. You look happy, dear. I am. Very happy. Good. You deserve it. That young man treats you right. He does. Rochelle checked on Kenji, who was fast asleep, then got ready for bed herself. Lying in the darkness, she thought about how much had changed in just over a month. From that late arrival at the restaurant to this moment, falling in love and building a new life. Felt like a dream. But it was real. She had accepted help, had let someone into their lives, had opened her heart despite her fears. And instead of disaster, she'd found love. Maybe fairy tales could come true after all. Maybe struggling single mothers could meet kind men who treated them right. Maybe sometimes being late to a date could be the beginning of everything. Rochelle fell asleep smiling, dreaming of the future and all its bright possibilities. February brought a gentle routine to their relationship. Jonathan came for dinner twice a week, cooking alongside Rochelle in her kitchen while Kenji did homework at the table. They went on dates every Friday, exploring new restaurants and museums and even catching a movie. On weekends they did family activities together. The zoo, the science center, parks where Kenji could run and play. Slowly, naturally, Jonathan became part of their daily life. He called Kenji before bed most nights to hear about her day. He showed up at her school for the Valentine's Day class party, bringing dinosaur-shaped cookies he'd made himself. He fixed Rochelle's car when it finally died completely, arranging for a reliable used vehicle to be delivered to her apartment with a red bow on top. "This is too much," Rochelle protested when she saw the car, a sensible sedan perfect for a mother with a young child. "It's practical. You need reliable transportation. Consider it an early birthday present." "My birthday isn't until July." "Then consider it a safety measure. I'll sleep better knowing you and Kenji have a dependable car." She tried to argue, but he'd been immovable. And honestly, having a car again transformed her life. No more standing at bus stops in the rain, no more exhausting commutes. She could run errands efficiently, take Kenji places on a whim, have the freedom that came with personal transportation. At work, Rochelle found herself less stressed and more present with her patients. Her colleagues noticed the change. "You seem happier," Tamara commented one day during their break. "That boyfriend of yours must be doing something right." "He is. He's perfect actually. Sometimes I can't believe this is real." "Well, believe it. You deserve good things, Rochelle. Stop waiting for the other shoe to drop." But that was exactly what Rochelle couldn't help doing. Late at night, when Jonathan had gone home and Kenji was asleep, she'd lie awake wondering when reality would intrude. When would he get tired of her? When would he realize she wasn't sophisticated enough, wealthy enough, interesting enough? When would the fairy tale end? Jonathan seemed to sense her lingering insecurity. One evening in mid-February, after Kenji was in bed, he broached the subject directly. "You're holding back," he said gently. They were on the couch, her head on his shoulder, supposedly watching a movie but mostly just enjoying the closeness. "I can feel it. Part of you is still waiting for me to leave." "I'm not." "Rochelle. Honesty, remember? We promised each other honesty." She sighed. "Okay, yes. Part of me is waiting for you to realize you've made a mistake. That I'm not worth all this effort and generosity. That you could do better. Do better than a kind, intelligent, beautiful woman who's an amazing mother and makes me laugh? I don't think so. But we're from such different worlds. You have billions of dollars and I grew up poor. You went to fancy colleges and I barely finished my nursing degree while working 2 jobs. You know celebrities and politicians and I know pediatric nurses and retail workers. And you think any of that matters to me? Doesn't it? Eventually." Jonathan shifted so he could look at her directly. "Let me tell you something about those fancy colleges and celebrity friends. Most of those people are miserable. They're lonely and cynical and don't trust anyone because everyone wants something from them. I've been in that world. It's hollow. But I'm not finished. When I met you, late and disheveled and apologizing for things that weren't your fault, I saw something real. Someone who cared more about her sick daughter than making a good impression. Someone who worked herself to exhaustion not for luxury but for survival. Someone who was brave and strong without even realizing it." He took her hand. "That's worth more than any amount of money or fancy connections. You're worth more." Rochelle felt tears building. "I'm scared. I've been alone for so long and I'm not good at trusting. What if I let myself fully believe in this and then lose it? What if you don't lose it? What if this is real and lasting and exactly what both of us need?" He wiped away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "I understand the fear. But you have to decide. Are you going to let fear rule your life, or are you going to take a chance on happiness?" "I want to take the chance." "I do. But I don't know how to stop being scared." "You don't have to stop being scared. You just have to not let the fear win. Feel it, acknowledge it, and then choose to move forward anyway." He kissed her forehead. "And remember, I'm scared too. I'm scared of messing this up, of not being enough for you and Kenji. But I'm choosing to try anyway because what we have is worth the risk." His words broke something open in Rochelle. She'd been so focused on her own fears and inadequacies that she hadn't considered that Jonathan might have doubts too. That vulnerability wasn't one-sided. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll try. I'll stop waiting for disaster and start trusting in this. In us. That's all I ask." He pulled her closer. "We're in this together, Rochelle. Whatever comes, we face it as a team." The next day, Rochelle made a conscious decision to let go of her constant worry. To accept the good things in her life without always looking for the catch. It wasn't easy, but every time doubt crept in, she reminded herself of Jonathan's words. Choose to move forward anyway. Valentine's Day arrived, and Jonathan took Rochelle to a beautiful garden venue outside the city. It was too cold for the flowers to be in bloom, but the gardens were strung with thousands of twinkling lights and heated pavilions offered warmth. They walked hand in hand through the illuminated paths, and Rochelle felt like she was in a dream. "This is magical," she breathed. "I wanted tonight to be special. To show you how much you mean to me." Jonathan stopped walking and turned to face her. "I have something for you." He pulled out a small velvet box and Rochelle's heart stopped. Was this? But when he opened it, she saw not a ring but a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant shaped like a heart. "I'm not proposing," he said quickly, reading her expression. "It's too soon for that. But I wanted to give you something to show my commitment. This heart represents mine, which belongs to you." Rochelle felt tears slip down her cheeks. "It's beautiful." He fastened it around her neck, his fingers gentle on her skin. "You're beautiful. Inside and out. I love you, Rochelle Washington." "I love you too, Jonathan Pierce. More than I thought possible." They kissed under the lights and Rochelle finally let herself fully believe in this. In them. In the possibility that sometimes good things happen to good people. That struggling single mothers could find love and support. That being late to a date could change everything. The rest of February passed in a warm glow. Rochelle wore the necklace every day, touching it whenever doubt tried to creep in. Jonathan continued to integrate seamlessly into their lives, showing up for the small moments that mattered. Kenji's school play where she played a dinosaur, a difficult day at work when Rochelle needed someone to talk to, a rainy Saturday when they all stayed in and played board games. At the end of the month, Jonathan mentioned that his company was hosting a charity gala in March. "I'd love it if you'd come with me," he said. "It's a bit formal, but it's for a good cause and I want you there." Rochelle's first instinct was to refuse. A charity gala with billionaires and celebrities? She'd be completely out of place. But then she remembered her promise to stop letting fear win. "What would I wear? I don't exactly have a gown in my closet." "We'll figure it out. There are shops that rent formal wear, or we could buy something. Whatever makes you comfortable." Rent sounds good. More affordable, more practical, less wasteful. Though Rochelle knew that Jonathan would insist on paying, she felt better knowing the dress wouldn't sit in her closet unworn forever. They went shopping the following weekend, Kenji in tow. The little girl was fascinated by the fancy dresses, touching the fabrics with wonder. Rochelle tried on several options, feeling awkward and out of place in the elegant boutique. Finally, the saleswoman brought out a red dress that made Rochelle's breath catch. It was simple but stunning, with clean lines and a modest neckline that somehow made it more elegant than the flashier options. When she tried it on, she barely recognized herself in the mirror. "Mama, you look like a princess," Kenji gasped. "You look like yourself," Jonathan corrected gently. "Just in a really beautiful dress." "That's the one." Rochelle ran her hand over the soft fabric. "It's expensive. It's perfect. And money well spent." He smiled at her reflection. "You're going to be the most beautiful woman at the gala." "I doubt that. There will be actual celebrities there. Trust me. None of them will hold a candle to you." The gala was scheduled for March 15th. As the date approached, Rochelle felt her nervousness growing. This wasn't just dinner at a nice restaurant. This was Jonathan's world, full of wealthy, influential people who would surely see right through her. "What if I use the wrong fork?" she asked him a week before the event. "Or say something stupid? Or embarrass you?" "You could never embarrass me. You're smart and interesting and genuine. Just be yourself, and if you feel uncomfortable at any point, we'll leave. No questions asked." His confidence in her helped, but Rochelle still felt like an imposter as she got ready on the night of the gala. She'd had her hair professionally styled, a luxury she'd never indulged in before, and the woman at the salon had worked magic with her natural curls, pinning them up elegantly while leaving soft tendrils framing her face. The red dress fit perfectly, and the necklace Jonathan had given her sparkled at her throat. Kenji, staying with Diane for the evening, had given her a thumbs up before she left. "You're the prettiest mama ever." Jonathan arrived to pick her up, stunning in a black tuxedo. When he saw her, his expression made all the primping worthwhile. "Wow," he said simply. "Just, wow. I clean up okay?" "You clean up spectacularly." He offered his arm. "Ready to dazzle some rich people?" "As ready as I'll ever be." The gala was held at a hotel ballroom downtown, decorated in silver and white with enormous floral arrangements and crystal chandeliers. Rochelle had never seen anything so elegant in person. People milled around in expensive clothes, holding champagne glasses and laughing at jokes she couldn't hear. "Breathe," Jonathan murmured in her ear. "They're just people. Rich people, sure, but still just people." He introduced her around, his hand steady on the small of her back. People were polite, asking about her work at the hospital and complimenting her dress. Some faces she recognized from the news, business leaders and philanthropists. Everyone seemed to know and respect Jonathan. "He's a good man," one older woman told Rochelle. "We need more people like him using their wealth responsibly. You're lucky to have found him." "I am," Rochelle agreed. "Very lucky." Dinner was served, multiple courses of food that tasted good but felt too fancy for actual eating. Rochelle found herself relaxing as the evening went on. These were just people like Jonathan said. Some were pretentious, some were kind, most were somewhere in between. And none of them treated her like she didn't belong. After dinner there was dancing. Jonathan led her onto the floor, and despite her protest that she hadn't danced in years, they moved together easily. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said as they swayed to the music. "For being brave enough to step into my world. Thank you for never making me feel like I don't fit here. You fit everywhere. That's your gift." He smiled down at her. "Although I have to admit, I prefer our quiet evenings at your apartment. This is nice, but that's real. We can leave whenever you want. So, let's enjoy this a little longer, then go get burgers at that diner Kenji likes." Rochelle laughed. "From charity gala to greasy burgers. What a range. That's life with me. Expect the unexpected." They stayed another hour, making appropriate small talk and listening to speeches about the foundation's work. Then Jonathan made their excuses and they escaped into the night. True to his word, they changed into casual clothes in the car and went to the family diner. Over burgers and milkshakes they dissected the evening. "You were amazing tonight," Jonathan said. "Confident and charming. Several people asked me who you were and where I'd been hiding you." "Really? Really? One of my business partners even tried to recruit you to volunteer with his wife's literacy foundation. That could be interesting actually. I love reading and working with kids." "See? You made connections, impressed people, and survived your first high society event. I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of me too," Rochelle smiled. "But I'm also relieved to be back in the real world. No offense to your world, but this feels more like home." "None taken. This is home for me too now. Wherever you and Kenji are, that's home." The simple statement made Rochelle's heart swell. They'd come so far in just over 2 months. From strangers meeting at a restaurant to this. A partnership built on trust and love and mutual support. It felt solid and real and lasting. As they finished their food and prepared to leave, Rochelle realized she wasn't waiting for disaster anymore. She was living in the moment, enjoying the present, building toward a future she could finally let herself believe in. And it felt wonderful. March slid into April with warming weather and blooming flowers. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Rochelle worked at the hospital, came home to Kenji, and spent her evenings and weekends with Jonathan. They were a family in all but name, and Kenji had started calling Jonathan Uncle Jonathan without prompting. "Is that okay?" Rochelle asked him after the first time Kenji used the term. "If it's too much too fast." "It's perfect. I'm honored." He'd hugged Kenji close. "You can call me whatever feels right, kiddo. Can I call you Daddy?" The question hung in the air. Jonathan looked at Rochelle, asking permission silently. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "If your mom says it's okay, then I'd be proud to be called Daddy." From that moment on, Kenji had a father again. Not biologically, but in every way that mattered. Jonathan showed up for all of it. School conferences, homework help, bedtime stories, the daily minutiae of parenting. He never complained, never seemed burdened. He was simply there, solid and steady and loving. On April 23rd, everything changed. Rochelle was at work when her phone rang during lunch. Mrs. Chen's number. Strange. The elderly woman was supposed to pick Kenji up from school today, but she usually didn't call unless there was a problem. "Hello. Rochelle, don't panic, but Kenji is sick. She complained of stomach pain at school and when I picked her up, she was crying. I brought her to your apartment, but the pain is getting worse. I think you should come home." Rochelle's nurse training kicked in immediately. "What kind of pain?" "Sharp, dull, constant, intermittent." "Sharp. On the right side. She's running a fever too. Appendicitis." Every instinct Rochelle had screamed the diagnosis. "Call 911. I'm leaving work now. Meet me at County General Emergency Room." She hung up and ran to her supervisor. "Family emergency. My daughter needs to get to the hospital. I'm sorry I have to go." Go. Keep us updated." Rochelle drove to the hospital, her hands shaking on the wheel. Appendicitis. If the appendix ruptured, it could be life-threatening. Kenji was 6 years old. She was so small, so vulnerable. Please God, please let her be okay. She arrived at the emergency room just as the ambulance pulled up. They rushed Kenji inside, and Rochelle had to force herself to stay calm and professional as she explained the symptoms to the emergency doctor. I'm a pediatric nurse here, she said, her voice remarkably steady despite her internal panic. I believe it's appendicitis based on the location of pain, fever, and presentation. The doctor, a colleague she'd worked with before, nodded. We'll do a CT scan to confirm. But based on what you're telling me, I agree. We need to get her to surgery soon. Surgery. Her baby needed surgery. Rochelle felt the world tilt but forced herself to stay upright. Kenji needed her strong, not falling apart. Mama? Kenji's voice was small and scared. I'm here, baby. These doctors are going to help you feel better, okay? You're going to be fine. They rushed Kenji off for the CT scan, and Rochelle stood alone in the hallway, finally letting herself break down. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled out her phone and called Jonathan. He answered on the first ring. Hey, what's up? Kenji's in the emergency room. Appendicitis. She needs surgery. The words came out in a rush. I'm at County General. I don't know what to do. The insurance won't cover all of it and I'm scared and I can't lose her, Jonathan, I can't. I'm on my way. 10 minutes. Hang on, Rochelle. She's going to be fine. True to his word, Jonathan arrived at the hospital within 10 minutes. He found Rochelle in the waiting area, pulled her into his arms and let her cry. She's so little, Rochelle sobbed into his chest. What if something goes wrong? What if I lose her? You won't lose her. She's strong just like her mother. And she has the best medical team taking care of her. He rubbed her back soothingly. What did the doctor say? Rochelle explained the situation, the confirmed appendicitis, the need for immediate surgery. The pediatric surgeon had already been called, and they were prepping Kenji now. What about cost? You mentioned insurance. It won't cover everything. Surgery, anesthesia, hospital stay. Even with insurance, we're probably looking at thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs. She pulled back to look at him. But that doesn't matter right now. I don't care about money. I just need her to be okay. She will be. And don't worry about the money. I'll handle all of it. Jonathan. This isn't the time to argue about accepting help. Your daughter needs surgery and you need to focus on being there for her. Let me take care of the financial side. Please. Rochelle nodded, too exhausted and scared to argue. Okay. Thank you. They let Rochelle see Kenji before surgery. The little girl looked so small on the hospital bed, hooked up to 4 fluids and monitors. But she managed a weak smile when she saw her mother and Jonathan. Hi, Daddy. You came. Of course I came. I'll always come when you need me. Jonathan took her small hand. You're going to have a quick surgery to fix your stomach, and then you'll feel so much better. Will it hurt? You'll be asleep the whole time so you won't feel anything. And when you wake up, Mama and I will be right here. Promise? Promise? The surgical team arrived to take Kenji back. Rochelle kissed her daughter's forehead. I love you so much, baby. You're the bravest girl I know. I love you too, Mama. And then she was gone, wheeled through the double doors to the operating room. Rochelle stood frozen, watching those doors close, feeling like her heart was being torn from her chest. Jonathan guided her to the surgical waiting room. They sat together, his arm around her shoulders, while minutes crawled by like hours. Other families waited too, everyone lost in their own worry and fear. Tell me about the first time you knew you loved her, Jonathan said softly, trying to distract Rochelle from her spiraling thoughts. The first time? Rochelle thought back. The moment they put her on my chest after she was born. She was crying and the nurse placed her on me and she just stopped. Looked right at me with these huge eyes. And I thought, I would die for you. This tiny person I just met, and I already loved her more than my own life. That's beautiful. She was this perfect little thing and I was terrified I'd mess her up. That I wouldn't be enough. But from that first moment, loving her was the easiest thing I'd ever done. You're an amazing mother. Kenji is lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She saved me. After Andre left, I was drowning. But I had to keep going for her. She gave me purpose when I felt purposeless. They talked for an hour, Jonathan asking questions about Kenji's childhood, keeping Rochelle focused on happy memories instead of fear. She told him about Kenji's first steps, her first word, dinosaur naturally, the time she tried to dig for fossils in the apartment complex's flower bed and gotten in trouble with the landlord. She's something special, Jonathan said. She really is. Rochelle squeezed his hand. Thank you for being here. For being someone she can call daddy. For loving her like she's yours. She is mine. Maybe not by blood but by choice. And that counts for just as much. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the surgeon emerged. Rochelle leapt to her feet. The surgery went perfectly, the doctor said immediately. We removed the appendix before it ruptured. Kenji did great and she's in recovery now. You can see her in about 20 minutes. Relief flooded through Rochelle so powerfully that her knees buckled. Jonathan caught her, held her up, while she cried tears of gratitude and release. Thank you, she told the surgeon. Thank you so much. She's a tough kid. She'll be back to hunting dinosaurs in no time. When they finally allowed Rochelle into the recovery room, Kenji was groggy but awake. She managed a sleepy smile when she saw them. Mama. Daddy. I did it. You sure did, baby. You were so brave. Rochelle stroked her daughter's hair, marveling that she was okay, that the worst was over. Jonathan talked to the hospital administrators while Kenji rested. When he returned to the recovery room, he whispered to Rochelle, everything's taken care of. All bills, all costs. You don't need to worry about anything except getting her well. How much? Doesn't matter. What matters is she's safe. Rochelle knew better than to argue. And honestly, the relief of not having to worry about medical bills on top of everything else was immense. Thank you. I'll find a way to pay you back. You won't, and we're not discussing it. This is what family does. We take care of each other. Family. The word resonated deeply. That's what they'd become, the three of them. A family built not on biology or legal ties but on love and choice and showing up when it mattered. Kenji had to stay in the hospital for 3 days. Jonathan was there every day bringing books and toys and his comforting presence. He slept in the uncomfortable hospital chair, refusing to leave despite Rochelle's protest that he should go home and rest. I'm exactly where I need to be, he said simply. On the 3rd day they brought Kenji home to the apartment. Jonathan had arranged for a home health nurse to check on her daily, and Diane came to help during the days when Rochelle had to work. The outpouring of love and support was overwhelming. Kenji recovered quickly as children do. Within 2 weeks she was back to her energetic self, though with strict instructions to take it easy for a while. On her first day back at school, she told everyone about her surgery with dramatic flair. I almost died, she reported to Jonathan that evening, but Mama and Daddy saved me. Well, the doctors did most of the saving, Jonathan corrected gently. But you were there. That's the important part. Later, after Kenji was asleep, Rochelle and Jonathan sat together on the couch. She'd been holding her emotions in check for weeks, being strong for Kenji, but now it all came pouring out. I was so scared. I've never been that scared in my life. I know. I was scared too. But you stayed. Through all of it you stayed. You held me together when I was falling apart. You took care of everything so I could focus on Kenji. You were exactly what we needed. That's what love is, Rochelle. Showing up. Being there. Not just for the good times but for the hard ones too. I don't know what I would have done without you. You would have been fine. You're strong enough to handle anything. But I'm glad you didn't have to handle it alone. He pulled her closer. We're in this together. All of it. Whatever comes, we face it as a family. Rochelle kissed him, pouring all her gratitude and love and relief into it. They'd been through a crisis together and come out stronger. That meant something. That proved something about what they had. I love you, she said when they pulled apart. I love you so much. I love you too. You and Kenji both. You're my family. And lying there in his arms, Rochelle realized she wasn't scared anymore. Not of the future, not of being hurt, not of any of it. Because whatever happened, they'd face it together. And that made all the difference. Kenji's recovery marked a turning point in their relationship. The crisis had stripped away any remaining pretense or distance. They weren't just dating anymore. They were a committed family unit and everyone around them could see it. In mid-May, Jonathan invited them to spend a weekend at his mother's house. Diane had been asking to see Kenji ever since the surgery, wanting to check on her granddaughter herself. She's really taken to the grandmother role, Jonathan explained. If that's okay with you. I know it's presumptuous to call her Kenji's grandmother when we're not married or anything, but... It's perfect, Rochelle interrupted. Kenji never had grandparents. My parents died when I was young, and Andre's family wanted nothing to do with us. Having Diane in her life is a gift. The weekend at Diane's house was wonderful. The older woman fussed over Kenji, making sure she was fully recovered and spoiling her with homemade treats. Brianna was thrilled to have her cousin visiting, and the girls spent hours playing outside while the adults relaxed on the porch. "You've made my son so happy," Diane told Rochelle one evening while they prepared dinner together. The men and girls were outside and the kitchen felt warm and companionable. "I've never seen him like this. He was always so serious, so focused on work and responsibility. But with you and Kenji he's lighter. Joyful. He's made us happy too. Changed our lives in ways I never imagined possible. That's what love does. It transforms us, makes us better versions of ourselves." Diane paused. "I hope you don't mind me speaking plainly, but are you two planning to get married?" The question caught Rochelle off guard. "We haven't talked about it specifically. I mean, we've only been together since December. That's only 5 months. 5 months can be enough when you know. Trust me, I knew I'd marry Jonathan's father after one date. When it's right, it's right." "I want to marry him," Rochelle admitted. "I think about it all the time. But I'm also terrified. My first marriage failed spectacularly. What if I mess this up too?" "Your first marriage didn't fail because of you. It failed because your ex-husband was a coward who abandoned his family. That says everything about him and nothing about you." Diane's voice was firm. "My son is nothing like that. When Jonathan commits to something, he commits completely. If he's with you, it's because he wants to be, and that won't change." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I raised him. I know his character. And I see the way he looks at you and Kenji. That man is planning to marry you, mark my words. Probably soon. The only question is whether you'll be ready to say yes." The conversation stayed with Rochelle for the rest of the weekend. Would she be ready if Jonathan proposed? The thought both excited and terrified her. Marriage meant vulnerability, trust, permanent commitment. But hadn't she already committed? Wasn't she already building a life with him? The answer, she realized, was yes. She was ready. Ready to trust, ready to commit, ready to build a future together. June brought warm weather and the end of Kenji's school year. For Kenji's 7th birthday, Jonathan threw a party at a local park, inviting her classmates and renting a dinosaur-themed bounce house that the kids loved. He'd consulted with Rochelle on everything, making sure she was comfortable with the expense and the scale. "It's her birthday," he'd said when she expressed concern about the cost. "And I want to give her a party to remember. Please let me do this." The party was a huge success. Kenji's friends ran around screaming with joy, parents thanked Rochelle and Jonathan for the invitation, and the birthday girl declared it the best day ever. Watching her daughter's happiness, Rochelle felt her heart nearly burst with gratitude. After the party, after all the guests had left and Kenji had fallen asleep in the car clutching her birthday presents, Jonathan drove them home. He helped carry Kenji upstairs and tucked her into bed while Rochelle changed out of her party clothes. When she emerged from her bedroom, Jonathan was in the living room looking nervous. He turned when he heard her, and his expression was so serious that Rochelle felt a flutter of concern. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's perfect. But I need to talk to you about something. Something important." Rochelle sat on the couch, her heart racing. "Okay." Jonathan paced for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. He sat beside her and took her hands. 6 months ago, I was sitting in a restaurant waiting for someone I'd never met. I almost left. I'd waited so long and I thought maybe it wasn't meant to be. But something made me stay. And then you walked in, soaking wet and apologizing, and my whole life changed. "Jonathan. Let me finish. Please." He took a deep breath. "These past 6 months have been the best of my life. Watching you become more confident and relaxed, seeing Kenji grow and thrive, being part of your daily life. It's everything I didn't know I needed. You've made me better. You've made me want to be better." Rochelle felt tears building but stayed silent, letting him speak. "I know it's only been 6 months. I know some people would say it's too soon. But I also know that I love you. I love Kenji. I want to spend every day for the rest of my life with both of you. I want to be Kenji's father legally, not just in practice. I want to make this family official." He slid off the couch and onto one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. Rochelle's breath caught as he opened it to reveal a stunning but tasteful diamond ring. "Rochelle Washington, will you marry me?" The tears she'd been holding back spilled over. This moment, this man, this question. It was everything she dreamed of and more. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes. Of course yes." Jonathan's face broke into the biggest smile she'd ever seen. He slipped the ring on her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying happy tears. "I love you so much," Rochelle said. "I can't believe this is real." "It's real. This is real. We're real." He kissed her again. "I want to adopt Kenji. If you'll allow it. I want to be her father in every way, legal and otherwise. She'd love that. She already thinks of you as her father. And I think of her as my daughter. He held Rochelle close. We're going to be a family. An official, legal, permanent family. They stayed up late into the night talking about the future. A wedding probably in late summer or early fall. Something simple but beautiful. The adoption process for Kenji. Maybe, someday, siblings for her if they both wanted more children. A house with a yard. Vacations and holidays and daily life together. It was overwhelming in the best possible way. 6 months ago, Rochelle had been struggling alone, working 2 jobs and barely getting by. Now she was engaged to a man who loved her and her daughter unconditionally. She had financial security, a beautiful home and a future full of promise. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all be a dream, she confessed. It's not a dream. And even if it was, we're dreaming it together. Jonathan squeezed her hand. Thank you for trusting me. For letting me into your life. For saying yes. Thank you for waiting. For seeing past the wet, stressed, late woman in the restaurant to the person underneath. For loving us so completely. The next morning they told Kenji together. The little girl's face lit up like Christmas morning. You're getting married? Like princes and princesses. Exactly like that, Rochelle confirmed. And Daddy Jonathan is going to officially become your daddy through adoption. What do you think? I think it's the best thing ever. Kenji threw her arms around both of them. We're going to be a real family. We already are a real family, sweetie. This just makes it official. Jonathan hugged her tight. I love you, Kenji. I'm so happy I get to be your dad. I love you too, Daddy. You're the best daddy in the world. Over the next few weeks, they shared the news with friends and family. Everyone was thrilled. Diane cried happy tears and started immediately planning engagement party ideas. Candace and Marcus offered to help with wedding planning. Tamara took credit for the entire relationship. I told you he was perfect, she said smugly. You should always listen to me. You were right. Thank you for not letting me say no to that blind date. See? I have excellent instincts. Now, what can I do to help with the wedding? The wedding planning process was surprisingly easy. Neither Rochelle nor Jonathan wanted anything elaborate or ostentatious. They settled on a ceremony in Diane's backyard in September, with close friends and family only. Simple but meaningful, focused on the commitment rather than the spectacle. The adoption process for Kenji was more complex, involving paperwork and home studies and court appearances. But Jonathan's lawyers helped navigate everything efficiently. Andre had to be contacted to relinquish his parental rights, and to everyone's surprise, he signed the paperwork without argument. He'd moved on, started a new family, and wanted nothing to do with his first daughter. It stung, but Rochelle was relieved that Kenji would face no opposition to being adopted by Jonathan. In July, on Rochelle's birthday, Jonathan surprised her with a house. Not a mansion or an estate, but a comfortable 3-bedroom home in a good neighborhood with a big backyard and excellent schools nearby. I thought Kenji could use a yard to play in, he explained. And maybe space for a dog if you're open to that. Plus, this way we have room for visitors and for future growth if we want it. Rochelle walked through the empty rooms, imagining their furniture arranged, their lives unfolding here. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect. We can make changes, paint colors, whatever you want. I want you to feel like it's yours, not just mine. It's ours. That's what makes it perfect. They moved in mid-July, and spent August settling in and making the house their own. Kenji's room was painted light blue with dinosaur decals on the walls. The backyard was equipped with a swing set. They adopted a rescue dog, a gentle golden retriever that Kenji named Amber, who followed the little girl everywhere. It was domestic bliss, the kind Rochelle had dreamed of but never believed she'd achieve. Working at a job she loved, raising her daughter in a safe, comfortable home, planning a wedding to a man who treated her like a partner and equal. Life felt full and rich and real. Some nights, lying in bed in the house they now shared, Rochelle would touch her engagement ring and marvel at how much had changed. From that rainy Christmas Eve, showing up late and disheveled, to this. A life beyond anything she'd imagined. What are you thinking about? Jonathan would ask, pulling her close. How lucky I am. How grateful. How much I love this life we're building. Me too. Every day, me too. And in those quiet moments, Rochelle felt not just happiness but peace. The anxiety and worry that had defined her life for so long had faded, replaced by security and joy. She'd found her person, her partner, her family. And it all started because he'd waited. Because kindness and patience had won out over convenience and impatience. Because sometimes being late to something could be exactly on time for everything else. September arrived with cooler temperatures and the promise of a new season. Wedding preparations kicked into high gear. The ceremony was scheduled for September 28th, just over a week away, and Rochelle found herself both excited and nervous. "What if it rains?" she fretted to Jonathan one evening. "Then we get married in the rain. Or we move it inside. Either way, we'll be married by the end of the day. That's what matters." He was right, of course. The details didn't matter nearly as much as the commitment. But Rochelle couldn't help wanting everything to be perfect. The week before the wedding, Diane hosted a combined bachelor/bachelorette party, a casual barbecue at her house with all their friends and family. It was loud and joyful, with toasts and laughter and love filling every corner. Kenji ran around with Brianna, both girls excited about being flower girls. "I get to wear a fancy dress and throw petals," Kenji explained to anyone who would listen. "It's my most important job." On September 27th, the day before the wedding, Jonathan took Rochelle and Kenji on a surprise outing. He drove them to a beautiful garden venue, the same one where he'd given Rochelle her necklace on Valentine's Day. But this time the weather was warm and the flowers were in full bloom. "Why are we here?" Rochelle asked. "Because I wanted one last special memory before we get married tomorrow. Just the three of us as we are now. Tomorrow we officially become something new, but today I want to celebrate what we already are, a family." They walked through the gardens, holding hands, talking about the past 9 months and all the changes they'd experienced together. Jonathan had arranged a surprise picnic in a private section of the garden, complete with all of Kenji's favorite foods. "This is beautiful," Rochelle said, surveying the spread. "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to. I wanted you both to know how much you mean to me before we take this next step." He pulled out a small gift bag and handed it to Kenji. "This is for you, sweetheart." Inside was a delicate bracelet with a small charm shaped like a dinosaur. "It's your something special for tomorrow. To remind you that you're the most important person at this wedding. None of this happens without you." "Really?" Kenji's eyes were wide. "Really? Your mom and I are getting married, but we're also officially becoming your family. You're the center of all of this." He helped her put the bracelet on. "I love you, Kenji. I'm so proud to be your dad." "I love you too, Daddy." She hugged him tight. For Rochelle, he had a different gift, a leather journal beautifully bound. "For writing down our story," he explained. "I thought you might want to record these moments, these memories. For us, and someday for Kenji to read and understand how much love went into building this family." Rochelle felt tears building. "It's perfect. Thank you." They spent the afternoon in the gardens, soaking in the peace and beauty. As evening approached and the sun began to set, Jonathan stood and helped both Rochelle and Kenji to their feet. "There's one more thing. I started a scholarship fund in Kenji's name. Every year it will help a single parent get education or job training to improve their life. I wanted to do something meaningful, something that honored what your mom overcame to give you a good life." Rochelle could barely speak through her tears. "Jonathan, that's incredible. It's important to me that we give back. That we use the resources we have to help others who are struggling like you struggled. I want Kenji to grow up knowing that privilege comes with responsibility. That having more means helping more. She'll know. We'll teach her together." As they left the gardens and drove home, Rochelle felt overwhelmed with love and gratitude. Tomorrow she would marry this man, this generous, thoughtful, kind person who'd changed her life in every possible way. Tomorrow they would officially become a family. That night, Kenji stayed at Diane's house, a tradition for the night before the wedding. In the quiet of their home, Jonathan and Rochelle sat together on the couch. "Last night before we're married," Rochelle observed. "Last night before it's official. But in my heart, I've been your husband for months now." "When did you know? That you wanted to marry me?" Jonathan thought about it. "Probably the night you invited me into your old apartment for hot chocolate on Christmas. You were in this tiny space with almost nothing, but you made it feel like home. You made it feel like the most important place in the world because you and Kenji were there. That's when I knew I wanted to be part of that home forever." "I knew on New Year's Eve," Rochelle confessed. "Meeting your family, seeing how they welcomed us, realizing that you came from the same struggle I did and never forgot it. That's when I knew you were someone I could build a life with. And here we are, 9 months later, the night before our wedding. Here we are." She snuggled closer to him. "Thank you for waiting for me that Christmas Eve. Thank you for being patient and kind and exactly what we needed. Thank you for showing up. For being brave enough to try despite your fears. For letting me love you and Kenji." They stayed up late talking about everything and nothing, not wanting the night to end. When they finally went to bed, Rochelle lay awake for a long time, thinking about how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been working 2 jobs, barely scraping by, raising Kenji alone. Now she had a partner, a home, financial security, and most importantly, love. Real, genuine, transformative love. Tomorrow she would wear a white dress and walk down an aisle in Diane's backyard. Tomorrow she would promise to love and honor this man for the rest of her life. And tomorrow, Kenji would officially become Jonathan's daughter. Tomorrow their fairy tale would become legally binding reality. Rochelle fell asleep smiling, dreaming of white dresses and flower petals and the beginning of forever. September 28th dawned bright and clear, not a cloud in the sky. Rochelle woke early, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. This was her wedding day. After everything they'd been through, all the struggles and fears and growth, today she would marry Jonathan Pierce. Diane picked her up at 8, whisking her away to her house for preparations while Jonathan stayed behind to handle final setup details. The backyard had been transformed overnight. White chairs arranged in neat rows, an arbor draped in flowers, soft music playing from hidden speakers. In Diane's bedroom, surrounded by Candace, Tamara, and several other friends, Rochelle got ready. Her dress was simple but elegant, ivory silk that flowed to the floor with cap sleeves and a modest neckline. Nothing flashy or overly fancy, just beautiful in its simplicity. "You look stunning," Tamara said, helping with the veil. "I can't believe my awkward matchmaking actually worked. You changed my life. I owe you everything." "You don't owe me anything. Just be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you." Diane helped Kenji into her flower girl dress, maroon with a full skirt and a white ribbon around the waist. The little girl twirled in front of the mirror, delighted with how fancy she looked. "I look like a princess, Grandma?" "You look beautiful, sweetheart." Diane straightened her flower crown. "Ready to help your mama get married?" "So ready." At 2 o'clock, guests began arriving. It was a small group, maybe 40 people total. Close friends, family, colleagues from the hospital. People who'd supported Rochelle through her struggles and celebrated her joy. Jonathan's business associates were noticeably absent. This was personal, intimate, just for them. Music started and the ceremony began. Brianna and Kenji walked down the aisle together, scattering rose petals and giggling. Then Candace as matron of honor, followed by Tamara as bridesmaid. Marcus stood as Jonathan's best man, both men looking handsome in dark suits. Finally it was Rochelle's turn. Diane walked with her, standing in for the parents Rochelle no longer had. As they made their way toward the arbor, Rochelle's eyes found Jonathan. He was watching her with such love and joy that she felt tears threaten. "You look beautiful," he mouthed. "You too," she mouthed back. The ceremony was simple and meaningful. They'd written their own vows, wanting to speak from the heart rather than use traditional words. Jonathan went first, his voice clear and steady. "Rochelle, 9 months ago I was just a guy in a restaurant wondering if I should leave or wait a little longer. I'm so grateful I waited. You walked into my life late but right on time, bringing joy and purpose and love I didn't know I needed. You've made me a better man, a father, a partner. I promise to always wait for you, to always choose you, to always be the safe place you and Kenji can come home to. I love you and I'm honored to be your husband." Then Rochelle, her voice wavering but strong. "Jonathan, I showed up late to our first date because life was hard and messy and overwhelming. But you waited. You saw past the chaos to the person underneath. You loved not just me but my daughter, embracing us both without hesitation. You've given us security and stability and most importantly, a family. I promise to trust you, to let you help when I'm struggling, to be your partner in all things. I love you and I'm so grateful you waited. Thank you for seeing us, for loving us, for choosing us." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. The officiant, a family friend, smiled at them both. "Jonathan and Rochelle have asked to include Kenji in their vows. Kenji, could you come up here please?" The little girl stepped forward, looking serious and important. Jonathan knelt to her level. "Kenji, I want to make you a promise too. I promise to be the best dad I can be. To help with homework, to play dinosaurs, to keep you safe and loved always. You're my daughter and nothing will ever change that. Do you accept me as your dad?" "Yes," Kenji said clearly. "And I promise to be a good daughter and only sometimes bring dinosaurs to dinner." Everyone laughed. Jonathan pulled her into a hug, then straightened and took Rochelle's hands again. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Jonathan pulled Rochelle close and kissed her deeply. The guests erupted in applause and cheers. Kenji jumped between them and they scooped her up, the three of them hugging as a family for the first time, as officially, legally, permanently connected. The reception was joyful and relaxed. They ate good food, danced under string lights and celebrated with the people who mattered most. Rochelle danced with Jonathan, her husband, marveling at how natural it felt to call him that. Later she danced with Kenji, spinning her around while the little girl giggled. "Are you happy, Mama?" "Happier than I ever thought possible, baby." "Me too. This is the best day ever." As evening turned to night, Rochelle found a quiet moment alone with Jonathan. They stood at the edge of the yard watching their guests laugh and dance. "We did it," she said softly. "We did. How does it feel?" "Perfect. Absolutely perfect." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for today. For this beautiful wedding. For everything. Thank you for saying yes. Last December and today. Thank you for trusting me with you and Kenji." They stood together, watching the celebration, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. From that late arrival at a restaurant to this moment, married and committed and building a life together. "I have one more surprise," Jonathan said. "We're not going on a honeymoon right away because you don't want to leave Kenji, which I completely understand and love about you. But next summer, when she's on break from school, we're taking a family trip. 2 weeks, wherever you want to go. Maybe somewhere with museums and dinosaur exhibits." "That sounds amazing. Kenji will love it." "What about you? Will you love it?" "I'll love it because I'll be with you both. That's all I need." The evening wound down, guests departing with hugs and well wishes. Finally it was just family: Jonathan, Rochelle, Kenji, Diane, Candace and Marcus. They sat around the yard, feet tired from dancing, hearts full of love. "To new beginnings," Diane said, raising her glass. "May your life together be filled with as much joy as you brought to this day." "To new beginnings," everyone echoed. Later that night, back at their home with Kenji tucked into bed, Rochelle and Jonathan finally had a moment alone. They sat in their living room, still in their wedding clothes, processing the day. "Mrs. Pierce," Jonathan said softly. "That's you now." "It is. How strange. How wonderful." She played with her wedding ring, still not quite used to it. "I keep thinking about that Christmas Eve. How close I came to not showing up at all. What would have happened if I just stayed home? But you didn't stay home. You pushed through exhaustion and fear and showed up. That's who you are. That's why I love you. We've come so far in 9 months. And we have a lifetime ahead to go even farther." He pulled her close. "I can't wait to see what comes next. Growing old together, watching Kenji grow up, maybe having more kids if you want, building a life full of love and purpose and joy." "It sounds perfect. You sound perfect." She kissed him softly. "I love you, Jonathan Pierce. Thank you for waiting for me that Christmas Eve. I love you too, Rochelle Pierce. Thank you for being worth the wait." They sat together in the quiet of their home, thinking about the past and dreaming about the future. So much had changed since that rainy Christmas Eve when a stressed single mother showed up late to a blind date. But some things had stayed constant. The kindness, the patience, the love that had started that first night and only grown stronger. Outside, the September night was cool and clear. Inside, a family slept peacefully, secure in their love and commitment. A little girl who now had 2 parents. A woman who'd found partnership and support. A man who'd found purpose and belonging. And it all started because he waited. Because kindness and hope and love had won out over impatience and judgment. Because sometimes the best things in life are worth waiting for. The next morning, Rochelle woke early and slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Jonathan. She walked through their home, touching the walls, the furniture, the pictures they'd hung together. Evidence of their life, their family, their love. In Kenji's room, her daughter slept peacefully, clutching her dinosaur with the bracelet Jonathan had given her still on her wrist. Rochelle smoothed her hair and whispered, "You're loved, baby. So loved." Back in her own room, she found Jonathan awake and watching her with a smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Pierce." "Good morning, Mr. Pierce. What were you thinking about out there?" "How lucky we are. How grateful I am. How happy." She climbed back into bed, snuggling against him. "How this is just the beginning of everything. It is just the beginning. And I can't wait for every moment of it." They lay together as morning light filtered through the windows, planning their day, their week, their life. Simple, ordinary moments that meant everything because they were shared. Because they were built on love and trust and the decision to choose each other every day. That evening, the whole family gathered for dinner at their house. Rochelle cooked while Jonathan helped and Kenji set the table. Diane, Candace, Marcus and Brianna joined them, filling the home with laughter and conversation. "This is nice," Diane said, watching her family interact. "This is what it's all about. People who love each other, sharing a meal, building memories." "It is," Rochelle agreed. It's everything. After dinner, after everyone had gone home, Rochelle, Jonathan, and Kenji sat in the living room. Amber the dog dozed by the fireplace. The house was quiet and peaceful. Can we do family movie night? Kenji asked. Absolutely, Jonathan said. What do you want to watch? Something with dinosaurs. Of course. They settled on the couch, Kenji between them, and started a documentary about paleontology. Halfway through, the little girl fell asleep, her head on Rochelle's lap. Jonathan reached across their daughter to take Rochelle's hand. They didn't need to speak. The moment said everything. We made this. We built this family. We chose this life. And it was perfect. Not because there were no challenges or struggles ahead. There would be. Life was complicated and unpredictable. But they would face it together, as a team, as a family built on love and trust and the willingness to show up for each other. Rochelle looked at her wedding ring, then at her daughter, then at her husband. This was her life now. Not a fairy tale, because fairy tales weren't real. But a real love story, built by real people who chose kindness and patience and hope. And it all started with a late arrival on Christmas Eve and a man who waited. She wouldn't change a single moment.